I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everybody. We had commendation ceremony at 5:30, an exec session, but commendations are great because we get to honor excellence, not only in our staff but in students, and we get to hear from more students in just a second. Brad, we're looking at any modifications?
No, it was added earlier in the day. Personnel. There was a personnel report added earlier in the day.
So it's just personnel.
Yep.
All right, no modifications to the agenda, and we will have public comment shortly, but our public comment tonight is going to start with some young people from DeWitt and their flaming fries, apparently. And we like them hot, we like them salty, and so here you go.
Okay, hi, we're the flaming fries from DeWitt, and yeah. Flaming Fries is DeWitt Middle School's Destination Imagination Team. Destination Imagination, or DI, is a program where we learn about how to work with each other to creatively solve problems and accomplish tasks. Every year, DI offers 6 challenges for teams to choose from. There's a technical challenge, a fine arts challenge, a structural challenge, an engineering challenge, and a service learning challenge, plus a scientific challenge.
Alright, so last year was our first year as a Destination Imagination team. We chose the Fine Arts Challenge, and we did a play about Paul Revere and his phobia of red socks and how a singing whale helped him pass it. And we won the New York State competition for, well, just first place.
This year we chose the Service Learning Challenge, the meme of that. We met with Mayor Myrick and Dr. Brown to identify a problem in our community. Our Serbrick project was to help keep people active when the weather makes it difficult to exercise outside. Amy Sullivan Murphy, one of Caroline's PE teachers, helped us come up with ideas for movement videos and posters. Our project will help people because physical activity is not just good for your body, but it also is good for your mind. It will help improve memory and focus. Activity is a good break for children and adults who have to sit for long periods of time.
We met with 10 local groups and individuals to make group videos and posters. We created 9 different posters and 31 videos lasting a total of almost 90 minutes. We were able to print and laminate 1,000 posters at the BOE's print shop. This is for IPEI Red and Gold Grant. 2/3 went to 12 ICSD schools, the rest to local businesses. We brought some tonight, please take some.
Part of our challenge was to make a bead and make it go viral. Our bead has 3,700 Facebook views, 85 Facebook shares, and 25 Twitter retweets. We're doing an online event that lasts from February 22nd to March 4th. We will have 10 days of movement videos, Monday through Friday for 2 weeks. And it is great for indoor recess, movement breaks, etc. We would really like you to participate in it because we are hoping lots of schools, businesses, and people in their homes will try our posters and videos. Leave a comment or picture and use hashtag #AllWeatherActive so we can track at www.facebook.com/theflamingfries, Twitter /theflamingfries, Instagram /theflamingfries, or theflamingfries.com. Now for a sneak peek. Here's a video with clips from every day of our event.
That was fantastic.
Up, Cornell Bear.
Thank you for letting us present tonight.
Now we'll, yeah. That's a great job, Lauren.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing the flaming prize. Thanks for the message. Can we come present? And it's always great to hear from kids. Kids, you're great.
That was fantastic.
I know I sit around way too much all day because I have to sit for my job, and it's you got to get up and move.
I think you need to post it right next to your desk.
There you go.
And,
Some of us don't have that excuse, and I just sit around.
there you go.
Post it out.
Yeah, I got a poster, exactly. I can't duplicate Savante Myrick, but you won't know that. And IPI was going to...
Yeah, that's me.
Oh, there's Jen.
Hard act to follow. I'm Jennifer Bolosky, for those of you who don't know me. I am the IPI Spelling Bee Committee Chair. The 18th Annual IPI Spelling Bee will be held on Sunday, March 6th, at the Ithaca High School Wellness Center Gym. It's a family-friendly community event that is Ithaca Public Education Initiative's signature fundraiser, raising funds for IPI grants for Ithaca City School District teachers. You just heard from the Flaming Fries, who received a Ready Gold grant for their service learning project. Last year, over $90,000 in grants was awarded for projects that enhance the education of ICSD students. This year, we have 32 spelling teams competing for the coveted Fuzzy Bee Trophy. 14 teams represent groups from the Ithaca City School District. A number of the spelling bee team members are sitting here with us tonight, whom I would like to thank and acknowledge. For the administration team, hashtag first word out. Dr. Brown, Dr. Landau, who's somewhere, and COO Amanda Verba. I also want to thank the team Board of Ed Buzz with board members Pat Osalu, Maura Lang, and Eldred Harris. We also have teams representing DeWitt, LMCS, Ithaca Teachers Association, IHS Math Teachers, IHS PTA, Bell Sherman and Caroline PTAs, ICSD Librarians, Code Red Robotics, Fine Arts Booster Grip, and Ithaca STEM. Additionally, we have PTA Council co-sponsoring a team representing 3 PTAs. So thank you all again, and I wish you all best of luck on the 6th. Tonight, I'm asking you, the Board of Ed administrators and student representatives, to promote the bee in places of work, meetings, amongst your school audiences, friends, and family by wearing these nice bee buttons we have passed out, hanging the posters that have also been passed out. I believe they're under the Flaming Fries poster. And if you could just disseminate them, we are looking for a high audience turnout because that's part of the way IPI raises money for teachers' grants, plus the bee is just plain fun. Doors open up at 1:30 p.m. It's free and it's open to the community. We will have cheering sections, rallying teams in their crazy costumes, a play area for children accompanied by a parent or caregiver, a silent auction, quilt raffle, photo booth, and complimentary refreshments. Again, please share this message about the bee with all your networks, friends, family, associates. It's a once-a-year event, again, raising funds for teacher grants throughout the ICSD. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Jennifer. Thank you once again to IPI for all you do for the children of this community. And Dr. Brown, I can't believe you're going to try to do this again, but way to take it for.
First word out.
Way to take it for. First word out.
Keeping the bar low.
The name of my team.
First word out. Different format this year for the spelling bee, so we'll have to actually pay attention, and it'll be fun. So we'll be there on the 6th. And Chris, I think we're ready to go ahead, and we're in the public comment period.
Michal Ronen. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Michal Ronen. Sorry to get all serious after all that.
That's why you're first.
My name is Michal Ronen. I'm a second grade teacher at Fall Creek School with 24 years of teaching experience. Oh my God. I would like to express a couple of opinions about special education and inclusion. I'm going to try to do a few very brief things, and obviously you can ask me for details at some other time. First, when special programs were closed, children dispersed to different buildings. It felt clear to the teachers that neat numbers of people and hours were the driving forces rather than the specifics of what individual kids needed. There are itinerant consultants stopping by a couple times a week is nowhere close to support that is necessary, and that can only happen when there's a they're welcoming to the child into the school community. Second, you should know that it happens quite often that thinly spread scheduled special education teachers I've lost it. That the IEPs, individualized education plans, are often not in give me the word, compliance. Thank you. Maybe not. I don't know what a number of. I'd be curious to find out what. But it often happens that we make the times, and it doesn't actually fit into reality. Special education teachers get specialized training when they get certified, and regular education teachers depend on their expertise. And many of us feel that too frequently we're considered interchangeable for instruction, and that's just not the case. I have the privilege of working with the most outstanding one-to-one aide. Without him, the student who works with his roller coaster of emotions would probably disrupt things quite dramatically, but with him things are going quite well. And this is blind luck, and it shouldn't be luck. He gets paid significantly below living wage, and the people that we count on the most to support the children whose intense needs are the highest are the ones that we pay the least, and there's something kind of backwards about that. Finally, I would like to point out what you may or may not know, that as of late, it is emotional and behavioral needs that are increasingly problematic. For children's families are struggling in various ways. Increasing numbers of children are affected by academic and socially debilitating anxieties brought on by many factors. And the juggling act of providing a safe, loving learning environment for more and more needy children who need more and more hugs, without the proper supports, it feels eroding. And we can't simply just place children in classes and cross our fingers and hope for the best. The children are just too precious for that. So that was just a little smattering of ideas that I think and that many of my colleagues and I talk about, and it's more of an invitation to have a conversation about each one of those things. Thanks.
Liz Quadrosi.
Hi.
Hello.
I didn't write anything down, so hopefully I won't forget what I wanted to talk about. But I am a 6th grade teacher at DeWitt. I teach science. And I just wanted to share with you an experience that happened to my team teachers and I about 2 weeks ago. We identified 2 students on our team that seemed pretty clear had learning disabilities, and we have been trying many strategies with these kids all year long, and we went through the RTI process and thought this is more than we're able to do for ourselves. And so we, sorry, I get out of breath, we sort of passed it along and requested that we pursue these learning disabilities further. And we were told that because of the caseload that existed prior to these students, that they would not be evaluated at this time, or even perhaps this year. And we would work for it towards the beginning of 7th grade. And there is a significant, it seems in our building, and our sense was, that we do have an amazing staff, Crystal and Lee included, but their workload is becoming increasingly hard to handle, and the supports and resources to help them manage that are just not there, especially for our newer special ed teachers. In 3 years, my other team of 6th grade teachers is on their 4th special ed teacher, which is exceptionally disruptive, both as colleagues and as students who are in those classes. So I just wanted to share that experience with you and share with you that people are working as hard as they can to provide all of the services on IEPs and above and beyond, and the hugs and the co-planning and the sharing of curriculum. But humans are humans, and we feel at this point that we're reaching a breaking point, and that we are we're gonna really not help some kids at this point.
Thank you.
Catherine
Cernera.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Catherine Cernera. I am here representing some Ithaca Teachers Association interests. I know that later on the agenda tonight is a whole conversation about special ed, and that in that conversation will be some of the results from the recent survey that was given to parents, community members, and teachers about how special ed is going in the district. And I just wanted to make sure that everyone was aware that that special ed survey was given out. It was distributed. We were asked to fill it out. We were asked to fill it out anonymously. But in the survey, we were asked if we were teachers to identify our building, our subject area, and our grade level. And while it is a large school district compared to some, when you have to identify your building, your grade level, and your subject area, you are no longer anonymous. And I've had a number of my colleagues come to me and say, I really wanted to fill that out. I really had strong opinions, but I was afraid to. So I just want to make it known that it was not an anonymous survey, and that there were voices that were not heard because of that.
Stephen Kirsch.
Come up where the lighting's good, if that's okay.
Hi there. Steve Kirsch, 24th year at Boynton Middle School. 12 different principals. 5 of them starting with the letter J. Jack, Joe, Johnny, Jason, and Joe. Chose teaching as a third career. My father was the superintendent of schools in Western and Central New York, did some interim work here, so I get the superintendent thing. Special education teacher, co-teacher. At a board meeting in January, it was mentioned that we do not have, not yet been able to crack the code for academically reaching some students from impoverished homes or those with special education needs. From a historical perspective, I'd like to let you know that for several years, these students were successfully served by the community-based program at Boynton Middle School. This program, as one piece of a continuum of services offered at the time, challenged and enriched the lives of many students who entered the world of middle school with low academic and social skills, as well as emotional challenges. Several students who were in that program came to our building with a first or second grade reading level, second, third grade math levels, and we wanted to teach them algebra at the 6th grade level. They didn't have the foundation skills yet. Many of our veteran teachers saw this program as a valuable component to serving the needs of all students at Boynton. There are many details I'd be happy to go over, not at this point, but I'm always available over at Boynton. Closing, Steve Kirsch, Boynton Middle School. In addition to my teaching course load for 24 years, 20 years teaching summer school, 15 years coordinated the community-based program, taken special needs students on trips to Niagara Falls, the Thousand Islands, New York City, Boston, Cape Cod, Baltimore, Washington, D.C., and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Over 140 school dances chaperoned. 20 years coordinator of our annual food drive, co-coordinator of our Science Olympiad program. It's 150 hours a year. After school tutoring, 9th period program, dues paying member of our PTA. Welcome Ithaca College students into my classroom every year. Welcome student teachers into the profession. 250 days accumulated in my sick bank right now. I could be sick for a while if I needed to be. But this isn't about me. Many of my colleagues have similar resumes. And what it's about is the services that the students need, special education students in particular. And I think we just need to make sure we keep that perspective. This is for the students. Thank you.
Ruth Marr.
Hi, I'm Ruth Marr. I'm SEPTA representative, special education PTA representative to the district advisory committee on special education. I've got some prepared remarks. There's a secretary to the board to pass that along, so I hope I keep it together. Otherwise, I'd like to do two things. I'd like to acknowledge the progress this district has made toward including students with special education in general education classes. This has come about mostly over the last 10 years or so through disbanding special education, self-contained special education classes. So I'd like to acknowledge that practice which came about under Sheila McHenry. The second thing I'd like to do is to thank Matt Landau in particular. I don't know, where's Matt? In the hall. In the hall. Matt. The administration in general and Matt in particular for listening and being responsive to our continued concerns about special education students and their progress in general education classes. Because we recognize that inclusion is a whole lot more than simply putting special education students in general education classes. And I want to thank Matt for responding to our concerns by setting up the committee and for recognizing that we did need a plan for implementing a solid plan for implementing effective inclusion, plan that would include vision, goals, and the necessary resources for implementing the plan, including supports for staff like planning time and professional development. This is the first time that I can recall that this district has actually asked families to join in a collaborative planning process with the administration and other community members and teachers in trying to solve these problems through creating a plan. We have a long way to go before special education students will feel truly included in the school community. It will require further systemic change, and we will need to work creatively and collaboratively to continue to find ways to do this. It's imperative that we continue to build trust in this process through transparency and bringing all voices into the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maggie New.
My name is Maggie New. I was here a few meetings ago to talk about on behalf of ITA for the need for a contract. And if anyone's seen the news, they know that there's been a press release and that there is a contract. Tentative, correct. And I want to start with a quote. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And it was also quoted in a recent Tadler article. Unions accept smaller increases in money with an understanding of an employer's financial status. And I understand that that's where we're at as a community, as a district. But as a teacher and as a person at Ithaca High School, I know that at that point and where we are with our tentative agreement, it may not be enough. And it's not the money, it's that guarantee that there's an investment in us. There's an investment in the long haul. That's saying like there's good faith in it and that we're willing to work with us, with you, to reach that. And we've heard that the middle ground is not there. But it also feels like we're hearing a lot of things like we're working towards this, but then we're not seeing it. We know that you invest in things. You invest in a one-to-one program for Chromebooks. You put in the time, the resources, the staff. You've seen the payoff in that. You've heard the payoff from the students. We know that you invest in administration. You have administrators that are doing well and that are successful here. If you look to the agenda, motion 5 tonight for the consent, you are approving to pay off an administrator's student loans that was contractual for them. A new teacher's salary is going to be paid off because it's in their contract, because they were brave enough to ask for that. And they were brave enough to say, instead of sabbaticals, we will take loan forgiveness. And I say to myself, what message are you sending to a teacher when we're asking for commitment that says, I don't think people are asking for an 8% raise. We are asking for a plan that says you are here and we are here and you want to commit to that. Because it's really hard to get together to say, hey, we're going to stay and we're going to be here and we're not going to redo resumes and we're not going to apply to other jobs when, we're given a deal that feels like that's the best they're going to do. They're never coming to the table. This, we had to take this is what, come on. We are worth the investment. Ithaca High School is worth it. The teachers that work there, and I know after we got done talking, I heard you say that. And I know afterwards we had a tentative agreement. And we still do. But it's little things that keep coming back when you read an agenda that says you're going to pay off student loans when we don't have that. We're giving up all sabbaticals. And the community thinks we're in it. And as a board, I know you believe in this district. But in order to believe in the district, you have to believe in the teachers.
All right.
And you have to know that we are worth it. That what you put in, the tax money that goes into our salaries, you will get back. You've already gotten that return in the graduation rate, in the special ed classification, in remedial services. You are getting that. Now it's time to, it's shared with us. And my question is there a commitment to us? Is there a phase 2? So if this tentative agreement is phase 1, is there a phase 2 that we are planning financially together? Because I don't think it's something where we should just keep coming and saying, we want this, we want this. Invite us to the table. Let's talk about this budget. Let's figure out where we find it, how we work together. No one's talking about instant money. We're talking delayed gratification, knowing that in the end, it will be worth it. Because when that agreement and that press release came out at 4:14, and our union reps had just sat down to the table to hear it, it was a really big insult to those of us who are part of a union who hadn't even heard the details. And I'm not really interested in why, but just in the fact to know that I'm working for a group that puts it out when we haven't heard it and assumes that we say yes. Say yes to us. I'm confused. We get that there's a financial discrepancy, but let's work to fix it. Let's plan for it. Just like we expect kids to plan to graduate, make the long haul here. Work with us for it. Thanks.
Anyone else wish to speak? That's everyone that has signed up.
I came in a little late while the
Good evening, Mr.
I hope you'll say something.
So yes, I want to thank Maggie for standing up and speaking about still the frustration that's still going to be there, even after this phase one, which has kind of become the term. We are looking ahead to phase two, with phase one to come to an end. It's without a lot of details out there to the community, a little bit that Maggie shared. We know that it doesn't really solve everything. So as the current president and chief negotiator, we are extending the information out for the tentative agreement, and obviously you can see that there's a lot of cheers that we were able to finally get to that point, and we were doing those information sessions leading to a ratification. But at the same time, you can see that there's still going to be this frustration and this concern about what does phase two mean. We would go right back to the table, maybe a 24-hour break, and we're both, doing this again. So that will have to come out within the community when this is phase one is done. Is that this doesn't actually solve all of the concerns that Maggie and particularly the staff at the high school is talking about. So we're hoping that going into phase two, we can continue to have these conversations so that we don't continue to lose people, and that some of the remaining issues are still going to be addressed. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and this is kind of how that process works. If you're in any bargaining unit, you know that we did the best we could. We're taking it forward, and we'll have more information to extend to the central administration and the board mid-time next week. But regardless of that going forward, we have a lot to do here before June 30th, which is when it would have to all be completed again, or we could be in the same situation fall, winter of next year, just like we were this year. So I hope you're still hearing that there's still some concern. It's a hard thing to swallow right now, even though people are recognizing the good that came out of all of the work, months and months, almost a year-long process. But we have a lot of work to do, so you'll still be hearing and reading things coming your way.
Anyone else? Anyone else before we move on? And we'll go right to LACS.
So the LACS Shakespeare is performing Tempest, March 4th at 7, the 5th at 7, and then the 6th at 2. And this is a student-run organization. I believe this is their 5th year. They don't have a teacher. They organize it themselves. It's very impressive. And I know I'll be going. It's a suggested donation, and it should be a great show. And what is also that weekend, but in California, is the Cornell Interscholastic Girls Polo team is going to nationals. So that's great. And I know there are all 4 students are in the ICSD district. I believe 1 goes to LACS, and 3 go to the high school, Ithaca High School. Yeah. And so this Thursday, we're organizing trips. There's trips rotations, so each student can visit 3 different trips to see what they'd like to sign up for. I know I'm going to be visiting trips about farming and canoeing and fishing. And the other kind of trip that you don't need to rotate to are focus trips. Last year I did a focus trip to Guatemala, and this year Lucas Smith is also doing a focus trip.
Yeah, so focus trips you choose at the beginning of the year, that way you have the whole year to fundraise and organize. So I'm in, it has a couple different names, but I'm in a trip where we're going to the Akwesasne reservation up north, and so we spend the year learning about Native issues and doing service work in the local community, and then we spend a week up there helping with a freedom school that's trying to reinvigorate Mohawk culture there. So that's an example of a trip which focuses on service. We have a couple other trips that focus on service. Other trips are more focused on just being outdoors and exploring the community or going to other locations. But trips are an integral part of LACS. It's a graduation requirement, and basically they're meant to have another opportunity for in-depth extracurricular learning, especially developing leadership skills.
And bringing different grades together and embodying experience.
That's right. Right now, unfortunately, it's actually being held right now, but just so you know, LACS is hosting an event at the school that's kind of for the community members learning and talking together about the digital portfolio work and the promotion by exhibition work that you heard about recently. So that's a continuing process. And then as a final note, there was a lot of interest among LICS students to be represented on the board this year. So there were 4 students, and we decided to have 2 students go the first half of the year and 2 students go the second half of the year. So this is our last meeting. Yeah, it's been great. I love.
We need more advance notice.
Yeah, sorry about that.
I have to learn new names. I mean, that's just,
Well,
good.
that's what these are for.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we both enjoyed being here. I know I loved listening and taking part in the discussions and learning about all the great stuff that's happening around the district.
Great to hear.
You both were excellent representatives from LICS. We appreciate your input and your time, and well, your time is your own. But always good updates and good comments from you both, and enjoy your trips.
Thank you.
As far as I know, Ithaca High is not leaving, so they are here, and they are here to fill us in a little bit.
Hi, I'm TJ Finlay, and I'm going to be the new rep to the board. Abia is moving away.
Oh. There's so many changes. I just,
At least we told you new people were coming.
but please, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So the IHS Winter Formal is this Saturday, 7 p.m. at the Statler Hotel. Tickets are being sold in the cafeteria, $15 for the early bird special, which was Monday and today, and $25 for the rest of the week. So far, we have sold over 150 tickets, which is a lot. Formal attire is suggested, but students can wear Hawaiian t-shirts if they want to. It's whatever they want, yeah. Except in this cold weather. All high schoolers are actually invited as long as they fill out a dance contract, and food will be provided along with some groovy music. So last Saturday afternoon, the IHS class of 2016 served pasta, salad, and garlic bread at $5 per person to help support our senior trip. And afterwards, they had an information session for the parents and students about upcoming senior events, such as the Blacklight Dance and Casino Night. Last Saturday at Barnes & Noble, the National Honor Society held their Pages Through the Ages fundraiser, where a portion of profits of the books and also Starbucks coffee went towards Pages Through the Ages, which donates books to incoming kindergartners. They were very successful and made over $600.
Well, LICS kind of stole the thunder on this one, but we would also like to extend the congratulations to the 3 IHS students and 1 LICS student who were invited to the interscholastic poetry event. So, thanks LICS.
You're welcome.
Additionally, last Thursday we had a continuation of our Conversations with the Scientist series hosted by the IHS Science Department. Cornell biology professor Wendy Wolford came, invited to speak to students about the controversial topic of farming in the Galapagos and how to harmonize agriculture with environmental preservation. The talk was thoroughly enjoyed by students, and they are cracking down on pizza. If you come for the pizza, you have to stay for the event. Which is good because students are now actually going to learn and not just go there to get food, which was a problem before.
I can get that.
Additionally, in Model UN news, sort of paralleling or following the science talk idea, Model UN hosted its first sort of geopolitical talk, we'll say. Had a professor from SUNY Cortland to come in to speak about ISIS, well-known professor, lived in Turkey, fielded students' questions, gave a rundown on the crisis in Syria, civil war in Libya was very informative, lots of geopolitical discussions, creation of the group, and so forth. And additionally, Model UN will have its upcoming conference on March 4th and 5th, so we welcome we wish them luck, and we hope they do good enough to be recognized by the board again, as they were this night at the board commendation ceremony. Thank you. So that's all I have for tonight.
In sports, we'd like to give a quick nod to the JV boys and girls basketball teams who both went to the STAC championship and won their titles as STAC champions. And next Monday, the 29th after school, there is a Men and Feminism workshop, and this event will be held in H Courtyard, and it's organized by our Strong Women Impacting Society Club, Swiss. It will be open to all students, and it will be a great opportunity for everyone to learn about the ways that they can support gender equality. And next Wednesday, March 2nd, our annual Music in Our Schools concert will take place in Kelt, celebrating our top-notch musicians and music program at IHS. Both middle school bands from Boynton and DeWitt and the IHS band will be performing a number of pieces, and the grand finale will be a collaboration piece, Song of the Matador. And this will be an excellent chance for the middle school students to collaborate with older students and have a first glance into being in band in high school. And that's all we have for you today.
Excellent. Anything to add, Tucker? It's your opportunity as an Ithaca High School student to weigh in. Tucker, unfortunately, is my nephew, and so Tucker knows that I made. I called out his sister a few years ago. So Abby did well, but everything's good, Tuck. I mean, it's senior in high school.
Sports this year.
What's that?
Looking forward to spring sports this year. Trying to bring title back to Ithaca for lacrosse.
I'm all for that, and spring sports do start early in March, and that'll be coming up March 7th. Thank you, Tuck.
Varsity sports start.
Way beat, Tuck. I'm just wait. Well, yeah, no, it's all good. So thank you, Ithaca High, and our guest appearance by Tucker. And now we're on to board responses. Anyone at this point? Pat, wait.
I want to thank everyone who came out. I want to thank all the teachers who spoke and the students who spoke. I missed a very passionate meeting in January. I was out of town in which many teachers spoke, and I was here for a very passionate meeting in December where teachers spoke. And I want to add that the teachers, many of the teachers who spoke were teachers I have known for many years, who I respect as some of the greatest teachers in the country. And I want to say to everyone in the district, we are not your enemy. We are three of us on the board are former teachers, 2 in this district. Before Judy Max retired, it was 4. 2 members of the board are parents of current teachers in the district. We're not your enemy. You're asking us to give you a vote of support. We have been doing this, I think, since before I was on the board. We've had a global economic meltdown that resulted in this district losing $23 million in state aid that hasn't come back, that we've had to make up, and then now we have a tax cap that makes it impossible for us to raise revenues. We've heard of teachers, and I'm going to say that during that gap elimination adjustment, we were the only district around here that didn't lay off teachers. Lansing broke tenure. They laid off tenured teachers. We did not lay off teachers. That was our commitment. Our commitment has been, and continues to be, to keep you employed, and you've gotten raises every year. They may not have been what you wanted, but they've actually, the raises themselves have been more than most people in town have been getting. Now, those may very well have been offset by increases in benefits, which everyone else deals with, and we would like to do something about that. And we are our commitment is to continue to keep you employed to the best of our ability. That's our ongoing commitment. If you don't know that, then communication has indeed been bad, and I'm going to echo Maggie's request for open communication between all of us and all teachers, open, ongoing communication. I am happy to be part of a group that will go out to every school and lay open, like Amanda does in boardrooms. Where's the budget? What revenue can we raise? What are we not going to get? I mean, I don't take it personally because I'm a board member, but it pains me as a human being when teachers I know are the greatest teachers around are that upset, and I take it to heart. And we are all working at it every day. And I'm going to say that the people on our finance committee are some of the best people in the country. Most school districts don't have paid professionals who can do the job that they do in saving money and keeping you employed. We heard eloquent statements from special ed teachers and teachers who work with special ed teachers. What are you saying? We need more staff, not fewer. You can see where the balance is. You can see the balancing act. Revenue is constrained. We can't get more. I don't want to go into what the options are here, but we are going to have to go into those options. My preferences are to keep as many teachers employed as much as possible. And to give the best to our students and to thank our teachers. If our teachers don't think I appreciate them, I will thank teachers at every single board meeting from here on out, and I want you to know that I truly mean it. Our kids get wonderful educations. You are dedicated. Every extracurricular that goes on here is because teachers step up and do it, and you do it for passion. You do it for dedication. You don't do it for, nobody goes into teaching to get rich. I'm a medical historian, okay? And I'm someone who's voluntarily on an 11-month reduced salary position so that other people in my office will have a job, because it's tough all over. And I am happy to be a part of as much open, honest, ongoing, and continual sharing of information as any of you want.
Thanks, Pat. Others? We'll go around.
Yeah,
Brad, go.
I don't want to repeat anything Pat said. I think she said it well. We had a great conversation last night, nearly an hour, about special education at the finance committee meeting. Sorry some of you weren't able to attend that. I don't want you to think we're not paying attention to the special education issues. Nearly an hour conversation last night about it. And we learned that we have 19 more one-to-one aides in this school district this year than we had last year. So the idea that we're not putting resources behind it is not correct. There's 19 more aides this year than there were last year. What I heard you saying was maybe you'd like to see more teaching positions there, and that's a conversation we should have. But we did have quite a conversation last night about special ed. That's where I hope more folks would attend committee meetings. It's where we have more back and forth, have more time to go over topics and go back and forth. I invite you to come and join us in those conversations, whether it's finance, whether it's facilities, curriculum, whatever, policy. We'd love to have more folks come and participate. It's your opportunity to have a little more input than just standing up here for 3 minutes and speaking. It's your chance to join in the conversation. We'd be happy to have you there. As far as, what are we doing? Pat explained some of the constraints on the finances. I mean, 3 of us are going to go to Albany on Monday. We're going to take a day out of our lives to go work on trying to get more resources for this school district. And I want to make it clear to the folks listening at home, we're taking no money from anybody for that. We're doing it on our own. We're not
driving your own car.
Driving our own car. We're not staying in any hotel rooms. I'm not charging anybody for any meals, anything like that. We're going to get up at 4 in the morning. We'll come back whenever we can get back that night, so that we can participate in the public process at the state level and advocate for the teachers and for the students here in this district. So we are working on those things. I can't tell you whether we'll have an impact or not, but we'll certainly be working on them. And I want to thank Lucas and Josh for being here for the last 6 months. Enjoyed having them. They sat next to me, so I had a chance to interact with them. I've appreciated having them here.
Going around?
If we're going around, I was going to wait, but I won't wait. It's fine. So Lucas and Josh, thank you as well. It's been great to see you both here, but also in LACS as well. And so I've really appreciated being able to walk to school and knowing a couple of friendly faces that at least would smile back at me. So that's been absolutely great. I know myself and some other folks on Thursday will have the opportunity to participate in Boynton Middle School's annual Black History Month celebration. I'm wildly excited about that. I've been doing this for the past, I think, 5 years. It's been longer than that. And if I'm not mistaken, it was actually Barry Durfel I'm looking at who helped start that way back when. Is that correct, Barry?
A group of us.
A group of folks. And that's probably going on 15 years now. And so what a wonderful experience for our students to take some time out of the curriculum. And I get to present on Black history in Ithaca. So I get to have our students understand what takes place in this community as well. To both the LACS students and to the high school students, we had a conversation and policy regarding graduation and who can attend graduation, and it's been the policy at Ithaca High School that only those students who are eligible to graduate in June walk the ceremony. We had a question whether or not that's the way in which we want to proceed, and I know Jason's going to be talking to some folks at his building, but I was actually interested in the student perspective. One of the conversations we had is if a student is able to graduate come August, should they be able to participate in the June commencement ceremony? And by reference, right, we can have these conversations as someone who has 3 collegiate degrees. I received all 3 of my degrees in non-traditional times, right? So I walked in December all 3 times for all of my degrees. And so I'm wondering if there's a way in which we think about what we've been doing. And I don't know if we change it or not, but I'm going to have some conversations with the high school students to poll some students about whether or not they think the current practice is what we should be doing for a number of reasons. There's pluses and minuses. Or should we be thinking about folks possibly who may be up in August, would students think that that's a good idea to participate in the June ceremony? LACS already does something similar to that in some regards, right? And so we've had some of that conversation, but that was part of the dialogue at the policy committee meeting. We'll send you out more information. Happy to invite you, but I wanted to make sure we connect. I mean, there's a reason why you're here. And then lastly, I'll speak directly to Maggie first. I am also confused. More than folks can imagine. It's been an extremely interesting year coming from Ithaca College of fall 2015, when we had a great number of things take place on campus, but I remember saying to someone we were having illogical conversations, that it seemed that I was in places in meetings with folks who were literally talking over, through, and around one another. And so to sit here on the board for the past 6 years, and in this conversation in particular, and I know there's been a number of different things, but I feel there's a number of times we're talking around, over, and through one another about folks' commitment to education, probably much more important, commitment to people. Let me just put it that way, just commitment to people. I've been disappointed in some of the rhetoric that's come out of the union leadership in particular. I think it's been disingenuous. And so here's what I'm proposing. I'm proposing that we have an honest conversation. I'm proposing that we try to do our next round of negotiations in public. So we said everybody have the conversation. And so I pushed the union leadership to start thinking about the ways in which, if we want to have a real conversation, put everything on the table, that we do that in a transparent way as possible. And I think that we may be surprised by the tenor of the dialogue and how it would shift. This has been, for me, a non-productive session. And I've sat in negotiations before, both as someone who's a member of a union and as someone who's a member of a board. And I realize that those conversations are not the best conversations. They're not the most productive. And if we want to do something different, if we don't want to keep promoting notions of insanity by doing the same thing over and over again, then let's be innovative and try to find a different process in which all folks come to the table with an open heart and honesty, and let's have a real dialogue about what's in the best interest for not only our young people, but for the folks who work tirelessly in our district.
Thank you. Yep.
Michelle? Go ahead, and then Albert, and
Okay, I just want to thank everybody who came tonight and spoke. It's really always good to hear what people are thinking about. And I also wanted just to pick up on the point that I think one of the things that we could all do together is to try to bring more resources into our district, because I think one of the problems actually is the fact that we're not getting as much state aid as we need, and the gap elimination is a real thing. And so we did form a legislative advocacy committee, which it's open. Anybody who wants to come, invite any members of the community. We're meeting right before board meetings, just for about half an hour. We've already met twice, and the meeting schedule's on the website. And also, we are going on Monday, the representative of that committee, to be meeting with our legislators. And one of the things we will be bringing up is trying to bring those resources such as restoring the funds that have been sapped by the gap elimination adjustment. I also would like to let you all know, everybody here, and I'm hoping some board members will do this. Unfortunately, I'm going to be out of town, but Barbara Lifton is doing a town hall meeting, it's at March 3rd?
March 3rd.
Okay, Thursday,
Week from
7
Thursday.
o'clock, town hall, and the more people that are there, letting her know that we care and that our schools matter and that educational funding actually matters to us a lot, I think it could really make a difference. So I'd really like to encourage you to go there and to direct some of this energy to Albany, who actually controls that money that you can actually change, or that you can kind of adjust from year to year. So, as I say, I welcome you to join us in our work.
Thanks, Ann. Albert, go ahead.
So again, the goal here is to not replicate what someone else has already said, so let me try a different tactic. That meeting that we had a couple of weeks ago was very emotional. It was very passionate for me. I really was dumbfounded by misinformation I heard. Right, so the emotion you saw expressed to me was at least as much anger as it was love. For teachers who have tenure in this district and we all respect them, to come here, stand up and say we're hiding $23 million, right? My only payment for the 6 years I've spent toiling for these kids is some chicken in that room. Right? Just saying we're sitting on $23 million is an insult. Or another teacher who stood up and said that teachers represent 100% of the district. It made me want to say publicly, and I held myself in because I was pretty hot, right? So what does that mean? The teachers start driving kids back and forth to school? You're going to make them lunch? You're going to deal with the psychological issues? You're going to pull them in sports teams? Right? Are you really 100% of the budget here? And we had another young man over there who I highly respect. He talked about professional development and curriculum development going on, saying that our collective information is wanting, right? My experience in this district goes back 25 years. When I had my nephews in school here beginning in the mid-80s or the mid-90s. Some other people go back for generations in this district. You already heard that if we're not teachers, we've had kids come to this district. So somebody say, we have no tenure, we have no capacity to stand up and talk for what should be done in this district. Insult after insult after insult. And I can't blame the individual teachers. You busting your ass, right? You probably went home after that meeting, right? Worked again till 1 in the morning to prepare your lesson. But when your leadership can allow people to make statements like that, we're in deep communication trouble, right? That lack of information sharing is profoundly disturbing, right? So I'm all for what you've heard talked about before. We know teachers are stretched to the limit, right? I know in particular because of family relations in their profession. I know the stresses that are coming into your classroom. I know where these kids are coming from. I know some of the family issues they're bringing with them. We know you're under increased pressure, right? We know all this. We still have to figure out collectively how to move that number from 78, 79% of the budget. I don't know what the breaking point is. Could be 83, could be 84. And then we're not talking about you having to lose colleagues and us trying to replace them with newbies. Then we're talking about no more colleagues, right? Then we're some of our surrounding districts and we watch the student ratio go up to 24, 25, 26, and 27, and there is no replacement, right? So we're at the most interesting point in my experience in this district, right, in trying to figure this out. So I would suggest to the impassioned teachers who have the experience, you need to start talking amongst yourselves with your leadership. What are you willing to concede, right? To get this $7,000 a year raise, just a hypothetical number, right? Because somebody said, we're not asking for a large percent, right? So you don't know what the starting negotiation was from your leadership? You didn't know they came in with a pretty ridiculously high number, right? To get to that, what are we willing to concede? Which schools do we close? Which kids do we have walking downtown, right? Because we can no longer service them with buses. We're going to have these conversations. It's time to rip these polite Band-Aids off and begin having an actual discussion on how we maintain our excellence and give the teachers that they can give you enough compensation so you can thrive, right? To have an honest conversation, we have to put it all on the table. The hours you work a day, right? The number of people who have served for certain times. Let's do it, right? Last year, I went through an election process where people were telling me I'm the person who hates teachers, right, personally. Right? So be careful. You stack this deck with 9 teachers next year. It doesn't mean you get any more math. It doesn't mean you can squeeze out the efficiencies from a business perspective we've had. Doesn't mean you can go through every single building and analyze the energy efficiency, right? So we can begin to get that money back. So be careful. That's all I'm saying. You can hear it in our voices. We've reached a point where we're not going to sit here anymore and allow this information to go over our heads without thinking through what even you opening your mouth to say these things means, right? It means that we have a significant breakdown in communication, and it's not coming from us.
Marty, you want to weigh into them? Are you good? Chris, we'll keep moving.
My effort not to repeat what everybody said, but Pat said this isn't personal, but when Maggie New, who actually taught 2 of my children, comes up here and makes a passionate speech about our commitment, that's personal, because I do believe in our teachers. And everybody said something that's very interesting. The information that's being shared with teachers, with some people, is not accurate. And somebody's benefiting from this to intentionally mislead the ITA and really create disharmony, to feel disrespected. And to come to a meeting and finally start talking about collaboration is refreshing, because the behavior in the past has been nothing close to collaboration. To stand up in a meeting and tell the board when we go on break that we sit there knowing that teachers don't have a contract, knowing that we submitted something that day, is misleading. When we do public things and procedural things, and to send out through social media, who do we think we are, is really disrespectful to us. And continuously this keeps on happening. And then teachers come up here passionately, fed a lot of bad information, and we get dumbfounded by it because we're trying to work through this. And I gotta be honest, I don't deal with union contracts. I think this is a broken model, and if you have an adversarial relationship to benefit teachers and the community and their children, you will not get good results. However, some people continuously perpetuate this adversarial relationship. How is it working for you? It's not. So I am all for collaboration. I echo what Sean said. Open, transparent negotiations. And I think you can ask anybody up here. We'll kick over every rock to find dollars. But we've also talked about being progressive, finding new things to do. And we've pushed that. No one has ever said, we don't want to pay teachers fairly. We don't care about this community. The teachers are our community. However, who is out there saying there's pots of money publicly and it's not their responsibility to find where the money comes from? It's not us. So when the dialogue changes, which it did tonight when we finally heard collaboration, then things will change. So you should really check your leadership and what the information is they're giving you and how they're sharing that information. If it's with aggression, if it's with disrespect, if it's disheartening, that's what you're going to get every time.
Anyone else? I think we're good, right? We need to move on, and much has been said, but we need to move on with our agenda. So I'm going to do that, and we're going to have the consent agenda, and we'll move on to the rest of our program.
Yeah, I'll move approval of consent as presented.
Second?
Second by Pat. Anything to mention as we go through?
There was really nothing, and I think we already all signed the tax roll corrections. Pass those around.
As they come through. All right, no questions, moved, seconded, all in favor? That's everyone. Jen Curley is absent. So thank you all, and Dr. Brennan, it's only been an hour or so we're good.
And
It's your turn, Dr.
A lightning round.
Yeah, yeah.
3 quick things.
Sure.
I've heard the word budget and understanding the budget quite a few times tonight. I'm happy to announce that we have 10 teachers signed up for the budget workshop that we're going to be leading in their MLP on March 14th, 16th, 22nd, 24th, and 30th. So any educator, any person in the Essex City School District who has access to MLP can go in and sign up for a workshop where we really go deep into what goes into this $100+ million budget that we operate under. So anyone who wishes to learn more, understand what's in fund balance, what's not in fund balance, how we allocate money. If you've heard someone say we can just reallocate monies differently to get more money, then come to these workshops. Again, we have 10 teachers signed up. I'm excited about being in a couple of those sessions myself. To have those conversations. Also, I'm going to be plugging tonight and in other meetings, the upcoming community perception survey. We do 2 or 3 major surveys a year where we go out and ask the community for input and their feedback on certain things. Special education, which you're going to hear about later, was one. The one we've done the last 3 years has been the community perception survey, where folks give us feedback on the goals and priorities of the district. I've said it every year, and I will say it again. We purposely use a third-party survey provider to do our surveys so that the information is anonymous. We have no access to the back-end data sources. So look at the meeting from last year this time, the one was here before that. So I've done a lot of work with developing and administering surveys. There are ways to say it's anonymous and it not be anonymous. That's when you're doing it in-house, you're looking at the data, and I'm manipulating it. Well, quite frankly, even if I was, I wouldn't go to a classroom and say, I saw what you wrote, I'm upset about it. First of all, I wouldn't ask the question. But we use a third-party vendor to do all of our surveys so that no one has access. We gather this type of demographic information so that we can put the results back out to our community in a way that's meaningful and purposeful. And finally, when I was brought up, I was told to say thank you when someone gives you a gift. I have a letter here from Joel Molina, the Vice President at Cornell University, and Beth Garrett, who we also be thinking about at this tough time. And in this letter, they're committing to the voluntary contribution that they provide to the Essex City School District each year. As it has been mentioned tonight, Cornell is facing some financial difficulties also. They've eliminated staff, they've froze salaries, they've done a lot of things. So this commitment in this letter means something to me. They've committed to increasing our annual contribution. Currently, we sit at $465,000. Over the next 5 years, they are committing to take that to $500,000. I know there are a lot of folks who say that should be 10 times as much, twice as much. I get that. But I was brought up to say, when someone gives you something they don't have to, you say thank you. So thank you to the folks at Cornell University for doing something they could choose not to do, and quite frankly could get away with it. And we can use these dollars and particularly the increase in the commitment to do it for 5 years to help young people in our community. So thank you, Beth, wherever you are, and I hope you're listening. And that's my lightning round tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. And we'll move on because there's some folks that have been patiently sitting through a variety of presentations so far, and that's our friends from BOCES. And this is a BOCES budget presentation that you all have to do on an annual basis, and we're going to do that right now.
While they're getting set up, I'd just like to introduce my colleagues, my former colleagues. I was a proud member of BOCES for 10 years and loved every minute of it, and I'm really glad that they're here to present. As you all know, I'm Chief Operations Officer Amanda Verba.
Amanda, hang on a second. If you are leaving, would you leave quietly, please? Our meeting is still in session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Amanda.
So our year-round budgeting, we've committed to that every single meeting. Sometimes we share on the stage, especially when it's such an important program like our BOCES. For those of you that have tuned into budget presentations in the past, we know that BOCES comprises about 12% of our budget. It's close to $15 million of worth of services, valuable services, services that range directly to young people to our trash removal. Right, so it's really all-encompassing. It's wrapping around our district, and it supports and enables us to do the good work either on our campus or on theirs. So without further ado, we have Jeff, who's going to be the superintendent there, who will be leading the presentation and will introduce your colleagues, I'm sure, and I will hand it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
I don't think we have to present anything tonight, just basically appreciate it.
So I'm Jeff Madison, District Superintendent of TSD BOCES. This is my Assistant Superintendent, Dave Parsons. We have our outgoing, retiring after 39 years in public education, Tony DeLucci, our Director of Career and Technical Education.
Wow.
Had to do it sometime. That's right.
You couldn't make 4-0? I mean, round numbers, we like round numbers. Couldn't make 40?
40?
What, 39?
I got golf on. I got golf on.
All right.
He got some subbing and some long-term stuff, so he did this for me.
All right.
You know, David Barr in the back, our Director of Exceptional Education. David Pitcher, who's our Director of Facilities. Diane Hessler, our Director of External Programs, which is everything that doesn't happen on campus, which is a lot. And Mr. Barry Durfel, who's our Assistant Superintendent for Instruction. So we're just going to go through some details with you about BOCES in general, just as kind of a refresher. Some of the things that we do, so you know what the budget pays for. Because there's some things that people are very familiar with BOCES, other things that people are not familiar with what BOCES does. So we provide specialized educational opportunities, leadership for current educational initiatives, and some shared services, and we facilitate cross contracts with other BOCES. We're a relatively small BOCES, only 9 component districts, so there's some things that people would like to purchase or some services. And what we will do, we'll work with the neighboring BOCES to make sure that our local districts have the same access to districts around the state. Specialized educational services, these are the ones most people are familiar with at TSD BOCES, and that's our exceptional education, all of our special education students. We have a very large center-based system up on our campus, but we also send out itinerants to work in local school districts to support your special education departments. Alternative education, we have a regional alternative school on our campus as well that starts the year usually with 65 or 70 students. We get closer to 90, 95 as the year goes on, as the needs progress. And career and technical education, well, our vocational opportunities as well, including New Visions, which is for more highly motivated seniors that are college bound. So when you look at leadership for current educational initiatives, right now we're working on supporting the next generation science standards that the Department of Education should be adopting later this spring, and we're trying to ramp up to make sure we're ready to support all the teachers in our region. Also, we're going to support the new art standards pathway, which is a pathway toward graduation now as a result of some action of the Board of Regents in October of 2014. Unit planning focus. I would like to just have Barry Durfel briefly speak about these last 3 of the unit planning focus, the refocus of model schools for tech integration, and our on-site and remote just-in-time professional development, because it's kind of some stuff he's been driving the past year and a half. Barry, could you speak?
Sure, no problem. So, as you see, there's new social studies standards just came out. New science standards are going to soon be coming out, and new art standards are going to be coming out. And what's become clear to us is that probably the most effective way to take all the different issues that teachers need to deal with, inclusion, differentiated instruction, understanding standards and using those with students, why not bring that all together through the unit planning process? Because for folks who've been teaching a long time, such as myself, we kind of came into the profession when unit planning was what people did. I like to joke about the fact we took a couple weeks off at the beginning of the summer, and then slowly but surely we started to call each other on telephones and say, hey, you want to go meet in the park and start planning a unit? So old timers are kind of used to that. Folks who are new in the profession didn't really come in when that was what was most typical. What was more typical was learning how to implement particular programs or modules with fidelity, so just a different kind of skill set. So it seems like if we're able to really ramp up unit planning throughout the region, we can bring together all the different issues that teachers really need to contend with at one time. So that's the idea behind that. Not disconnected from that is really refocusing the Model Schools program to focus on tech integration support. A while ago, when that program first started, the superintendents in the region really needed some support around data, because data was sort of new in terms of the public education world and how to get it all and manipulate it all. So model schools had provided a lot of kind of data reports, was a lot of what that was doing. But the real spirit of model schools is to take the money that districts spend on purchasing software for students and then provide professional development to actually support the integration of that technology. So if we're going to be working on unit planning, integrating technology into unit plans in ways that's natural and ways that actually helps further what students are learning, that kind of makes the most sense to do that. So for example, we've got a training session coming up next week for 2 days, focusing with middle schoolers in particular on tech integration and project-based learning. So part of what this looks like moving forward is 2 of the members of our team will be part of that 2-day training with the expectation that after the training is over, they'll then be able to continue to work with the teachers who went to the training in either planning ways to integrate what they learned into existing unit plans, getting into the classroom and actually coaching teachers and helping them problem solve when it doesn't work the way they thought it was going to work, etc. So kind of an ongoing approach. And then that gets to the last part there. All the research is very clear that going to a workshop, participating in something for half a day or a day, and then going back to school doesn't really lead to significant changes for students. So what we're trying to do is change that model. So if you are going to come and do something like a 2-day tech training, then the expectation is we're going to want to go back into your classrooms, we're going to want to see how it's going, and then help you make it go the way it was intended to go. At the same time, we've got independent study, professional development opportunities that are out there now. So for example, if you want to learn about formative assessment, you can go to MLP and you can download the sheet that gives you all the directions, all the resources that you need, and tells you that in order to receive this many credits, this is the work you need to turn in. In this case, let's say that one is one of my PD opportunities. I'll review the work, I'll give the teacher feedback about the work, and then at a certain point when they've met the expectations, they'll then get credit for the work. So it allows them to pursue it at their own time, at their own pace. What's been nice about that is I'm discovering that some of the teachers signed up and are actually working on it collaboratively, which is kind of nice. And then in addition, kind of asynchronous professional development as well. Or I'm sorry, that was an example of that. Another example would be like Jennifer Gondek wanted people to learn about how to use the technology Pinterest and how to deepen their understanding of cognitive engagement. So from 8:30 to 9:30, she offered a PD event that people could log into Pinterest and then they could communicate with Jennifer and actually learn about cognitive engagement through Pinterest. And the last thing I'll say, Jeff, about this is part of what was powerful for me, because I participated in that, I didn't know that when you search on Pinterest, if you search, let's say, early childhood education, you get stuff about early, you get stuff about childhood, and you get stuff about education. So I was trying to find some examples of cognitive engagement that I remembered from when I was a daycare teacher. So I had to think about what's the word that most gets at cognitive engagement that's going to get me the right images to pin. So the technology that she was using for us to deepen our learning actually deepened my own understanding of the concept. So that's kind of some of how we're moving our PD work forward at BOCES.
And that was 8:30 to 9:30
I'm
p.m.,
sorry.
not 8:30 to 9:30 a.m. They were up doing that.
Oh, yes, right, yes. That was in PM.
Mary's family loves us when he's taking his own courses at 8:30 to 9:30.
Fair enough.
But those are just trying to reach all of the educators in our region at the times when they're available. So we're trying to shift that model a little bit, just like teachers are flipping classrooms, we're trying to flip some of our PD, and I just wanted to get a flavor for that. So we also have shared services, and understand even school improvement services with various programs, because it's shared with all districts, it generates BOCES aid for you. So these are specific additional shared services that districts share that generate state aid for both districts. So we're very fortunate in New York State. There's educational service agencies all around the country in different states. Your state of New York chooses to incentivize the sharing Other states, you just purchase the service, you share it, and that's it. Our state, you purchase it, then they send you some money back to incentivize that aid, to incentivize that activity. And you can see some of those that we have going on right now in our region. Cross contracts that we facilitate for you and for other districts in the region. The one I'm going to point out is a new one this year is audiology services. One of the reasons that's a new one that we're servicing is a cross contract with City BOCES, which is Oswego BOCES. That's an expertise that they have. We have used in the past the Racker Center, and they're going out of that business of audiology. We've used them as a vendor in the past for our local districts. And we have made an arrangement with the neighboring BOCES to make sure that all of our school districts have access to audiology. Just signed my first cross contract today, David. So that is starting to catch on, and that's a good thing. We do facilitate grants. Several of these are pass-throughs, but also several of these are the ones we write on behalf of our districts and then facilitate for you. Some of them are supporting our adult education programs as well. That is growing, and some of that aid will increase over time as well. So, expanding services, things that are reflected in this budget are on the top, things that we're looking at in future years and may happen this fall depending on space and student enrollment. You can see at the top, we're looking at the potential of expanding the middle school. There's demand for more students in the middle school age to come to our alternative school. CDOS Work Readiness Coordination. I'd like David Bard to speak briefly about what CDOS Work Readiness Coordination is in the region.
We got a grant, CDOS grant, Career Development and Occupational Studies grant. We got a little less than $900,000 over 3 years to hire a full-time and a part-time work-based learning coordinator. Now you all have somebody already, Martin Shaw, of that at IHS, but it's a regional work we're going to do to build community and district work-based learning opportunities for students, and then also enhance what we have happening at BOCES. So work with districts who have work-based learning coordinators to enhance that work, as well as provide some opportunities for some of the districts that don't send students to BOCES to tap those community resources to build, to get to that 54-216, which gives you the CDOS credential.
That's a good information on that new program for the next 3 years, and we'll see what that grows into in the future, and if the state continues to support that effort on behalf of those students.
Can I ask us a question on that point? Whenever I hear that BOCES has started a new program, and you say that we have this in-house, my brain wants to ask the question, how did that come about? And it may be just history, and it may be catch as catch can, right? Because you clearly do some large services for the collective school districts in the county, but do we make decisions together about which programs it makes sense for us to have in-house versus which ones it makes sense for you to supply services for?
There's some really good communication, and especially in the special ed area. They're very well connected in this entire region. One of the limitations with the BOCES services, in order to generate BOCES aid, if you can provide a full-time service yourself, you can't share it. So we can only give you aid on 60% of a person, not 100% of a person. We can allow you to share up to 80% of a person. So when you're in a situation where you may need a little bit more than one person, we might be able to add a little portion of that for you, but if you can afford your own, we then have to turn it back to the local district because it wouldn't be a share, it would be you able to sustain it on your own. So there's some of the rules will end up you on occasion having your own service because we won't be generating aid for you if there's no share.
I'd like to say we can't afford anything.
So anyway, just so you understand how that works, but there are some limitations to the sharing. There's some rules, and Dave Parsons is the keeper of the rules for COSERS. So whenever there's a question like that, can we share this? Can we do this? How much of this can we do? Yes, no, yes, I'll call, those kind of things. So we're very fortunate to have that kind of expertise on our staff as well. In the career and technical area, we do have some expansion this year. It's really, we end up having to close down our building trades program, unfortunately, last year because of low enrollment. All of those students did get placed in other programs, fortunately, but we're replacing it with precision machining, I'm sorry for the way I said that. And also there is a greenhouse to table initiative. And Tony, would you like to speak briefly to the precision machining and the greenhouse to table?
Well, very briefly, the economic planners in this community indicate that there's a serious need for middle-skilled jobs, particularly in manufacturing and machining. We've done our homework, we've done our research, and we're going to be launching this program if we can find the appropriately certified, qualified teacher to do it. And hopefully that program will lead to providing students with 3 different pathways: immediate employment after high school to a 2-year program, and there are a number of colleges around the state who have precision machining degrees, and 3 after a 2nd-year program in articulation to a 4-year program if that student is particularly interested in pursuing continuing education in engineering. We've done a lot of work with TC3 and with permission kind of stole their greenhouse to bistro or farm to bistro idea, and we're calling ours the greenhouse to table idea. We will develop the greenhouse and it'll serve a variety of programs on our campus, which would include programs like food service, culinary arts, animal sciences. I heard yesterday that our culinary arts teacher wants to grow some herbs to make some kind of facial scrub, and that's wonderful, as well as outdoor power equipment and environmental science at Cornell University. So we have a lot of connectivity with a variety of programs, not to mention the possibility of actually starting up a horticulture program if there's some interest in doing that locally in the near future. But it speaks to the green initiatives, and we're trying to respond to that need.
Go ahead, Elder.
Another.
Sure.
We're trying to do this when it makes sense. So you got our high school principal sitting right next to you.
Yeah,
He
he's a
knows,
buddy of mine.
like I know, right, that there are kids, even if we graduate them, which we've been doing much better, right, in the last 5 or 6 years, even 10 years, we're walking around still a little disconnected from this economy, right? There's something else I always wonder. How can we both have stats in our hands that say we don't have enough kids here to install windows, fix breaks, we can do this kind of stuff, and we graduate kids who would have difficulty finding their next step in our community. So how do we, and you don't even have to answer this, we're all thinking about it here. It behooves us to have some conversations about how we can do this better. You have a program, we have an 800-pound gorilla, right, in the county, we got the kids. Neither one of them seem to matter unless we can bring them together, right, assuming you find the teachers, that's another issue.
To Elder's point, it's always hard to follow Elder's point, but I'll go off a little bit. You mentioned eliminating the building trades program. It's been the staple for a long, long time, and all I hear from folks in the industry that I do know that, really just impossible to find carpenters, electricians, plumbers, to fill spots, contractors really saying, well, I give up trying to find a licensed carpenter to do a job, around here. And we can't make people want to do that, but there's a tremendous amount of jobs, and whether it's tin knockers, just really high-paying jobs that are going wanting, bringing in labor talent from Pennsylvania or downstate or wherever to work for building that's really booming in this community. And so it really just seems college was okay, but it wasn't that great. I was Sean's gone. I was a January graduate, so not everybody is on that same time frame. But I worked my hands for 20 years, so there's a lot of folks that that's still it's got to be attractive in some way. But I just don't quite get how there's just no demand. Not enough demand to
Very
support.
little, but one of the things that, I'm really glad you brought that up, because one of the things.
It's my job.
It is. Lavelle sat through presentation just like I did on Friday. We're one of 5 BOCES in the state that's been selected to be part of the technical assistance center's effort to level up career readiness with college readiness in the state. We develop models in certain regions, basically as little laboratories. What are some ideas to level up career readiness, things like that, like the trades, like things that lead to middle-class jobs for families that we can do through the education system that will have an outcome. We know that we have a disconnect, that we're still geared in one direction. We're trying to get some interest in places where it still may need some more advanced education beyond high school, but it might be a 2-year technical degree in some college instead.
Right.
And how do we communicate that with boards, with families, parents, and then get the kids interested in what that outcome might be? So behind the scenes, the state ed department knows it's an issue. They're putting some funding toward the issue, and we certainly know it's an issue in our region that we're going to start going to work on.
Could I just pick on that same thing about the trades? How long did it, how recent is it that there was a lack of interest? Or was it like something building over time, and is there any understanding as to why?
I don't know if you can speak to that at all for us, Tony, because you were on.
Our building trades program was on a declining trajectory for the last 3 to 4 years.
3 to 4 or?
The last 3 or 4
3 or 4.
years. The last year of its existence, we had left in the school, before the school year ended, 3 first-year students. 3 students going into a second year does not make a lot of sense in terms of managing everything you have to manage, including the costs. So we were able to find appropriate placements for those youngsters. One who wanted to continue in the building trades, we actually connected to the OCM BOCES program in Portland. As far as reasons are concerned, the reasons are as many as there are stars in the skies. We have youngsters who don't want to work outside. We have families who want to see their youngsters do other pro things. We did have some staffing issues where there was an injury and we had a couple of long-term subs. Casting no aspersions on anybody, I think there were a combination of issues that simply caused that decline. Trust me, if I thought we could resurrect that program and get full involvement. We also reach out to school counselors, and I want to be really careful. This is not an indictment of school counselors, but we reach out to our school counselors. There's a strong student school counselor association in the Tompkins County area, and I and others speak to them regularly about reaching out to their counselees and to parents. We have big community open houses to try to advertise. One of the things to your comment, Rob, would be that, I've welcomed the associations, the labor unions, the carpenters and joiners unions, the business community to reach out to the public schools. We, as educators, can say it, but they're the ones that can prove that the jobs are there, the careers are there. And somehow, some way, they don't feel that there's a perfect match between they getting into the schools and the schools inviting them into the schools. And I don't know where that stems from, but...
Is it too late? I mean, the thing is, you've already disbanded the program, so even if one were to generate the program, can it be resurrected? I mean, is there hope going forward?
We would have to build another space, because we're renovating that space now for these other programs.
And one of the problems is with resurrecting it is, unlike the movie Build It and They Will Come, it's somewhat irresponsible to build it, hire a teacher, and hope that they're going to come, and then not have them come in September, and we have to furlough the teacher, and we have to shut it down again. Plus, we haven't removed or gotten rid of the equipment that was in the program because we have designs on it to be used in other ways. But it's really tough to build a program unless you have a baseline commitment from students that are going to be there in the fall.
No, I appreciate that. It was just, I did not want it to go past it without at least addressing it.
It's been a painful event. I'm sad to see it go.
Appreciate your interest in that. Just a couple other, we're looking at expanding energy management. We already know we have at least 3 new customers because the joint management team, which is the 4 BOCES region, the state looks at us as a mid-state region. TSD BOCES, OCM BOCES, Cuba Onondaga BOCES, and Oswego BOCES is a joint management team. They can work together or they can work independently. We've chosen to work together. They saw the value of our energy management service and is now a preferred JMT service. So we're getting customers up to the north now. That's lowering the cost for energy management in our region. So you'll see a little bit of expansion in some of our budgets here. It's because of new customers, not because it's more cost to you. But that is kind of taking off, and we're very happy with how that's happening. And it's something that I think people are interested because it pays for itself and drives money into the classroom. Monthly computerized task administration, that's the test that replaced the GED. And so we'll be able to give that assessment much more frequently and get more people that credential early so they can do something with it. And you can see what we're looking at in the future. We have potentially a primary autism classroom, a second branches classroom, which is an elementary 811. It's getting overloaded. We're getting some demands. We're going to have to add an additional classroom in all likelihood. An additional World of Work classroom, which is a pre-vocational exploratory for 9th and 10th graders. We'll probably add an additional classroom of that on our campus. So you can see our space push up there is becoming a real crunch with the demands we're getting from the services requests from our local school districts. New Visions Engineering probably is something that we're looking at for 17-18. Regional alternatives, school within a school. So diverse needs of the students coming to the alternative school. We're finding some are really needy, but they're not needy enough to be in some of our more advanced special ed classes, but we need to give them more support. So we're going to try to create a school within a school in the alternative to meet their needs. We are finding we're having a parking crunch on our campus because of all of these issues, but this superintendent refuses to add any more parking spaces, that we're trying to encourage a lot more ride sharing, create a Zim ride site for us, encourage our employees and our visitors to start doing a lot more ride sharing. So we're just starting that initiative. We're going to start communicating with, when we have big events, to the families. Hey, here's Zim ride, get on there, see if you can connect, help yourselves with the parking. We'll be doing some stuff on our own to clear space during those high activity days as well. So we're trying to address that problem without expending additional funds as well. Adult education, I'm going to ask Diana briefly just to discuss a few of those items, really briefly, about the things that are coming on board in adult ed in our region, because it does affect some of the things they brought up about how do we get that connection from the students at the end of high school to something to do with an adult.
Sure. With the CDL, we developed a CDL prep class this year to help with the shortage of the school bus drivers. Ithaca has definitely benefited from that. We've gotten a couple of drivers per that class. We'll be developing phase 2 of that, which is the CDL licensing component of that. That will hopefully be ready to go this fall. The machining is sort of a spin-off of what Tony was saying, that there certainly is a need right now for adult machinists. So we've been working with Stork for a partnership to develop a machining program. CNA, we're in conversations with Kendall to develop a CNA program. And
Certified Nurse Assistant.
Certified Nurse Assistant, yeah, all these acronyms in education, gotta love it. Cosmetology is probably the most phone calls in the adult ed world is for cosmetology.
They do my hair.
So, even though
We're supposed to
there's
try
not
to sell this stuff.
Oh, that's right.
That's right.
They do Dave's hair.
even though there's not necessarily a large demand for cosmetologists in our region, this will help the students that don't make the 1,000 hours and give them a second opportunity to get their credential. And also because there is a demand just from our phone calls, so that's what we're looking at for the future.
So now we get to the cost of these additional items and what's happened this year. Our change is up 3.72%. That means more aid is going to be coming to our region. One of the things that happens about the overall budget, our overall budget is much different than a school budget. We don't build a budget based on a clearly defined number because it's based on sales of services and people put in for the services. If the budget goes up, it doesn't necessarily mean the unit cost of that program goes up. Sometimes it causes it to go down when there's more shares, even though the budget goes up. It's like if I am selling aftershave to Tony and I sell 2 aftershaves, it cost me more money to produce those 2, but I had 2 more sales. So BOCES in many ways, 90% of it is kind of like a business because it's all a customer base decide to purchase our services, even the educational services and the instructional services. 90% of it is that. 10% of it is the administrative budget, which isn't just administration or administrators. We'll share with you later some things that are in that administrative budget. So understand when a BOCES budget is going up, it means more people are purchasing our services. It's not because our costs are going through the roof. And you can see the three general areas where it's going up: instructional support, instructional services, which are the places we want to see them go, because we know it's going to affect the classroom. Exceptional education, which is the demand for those additional classrooms for special education students. Our itinerants went slightly down, but they went up 10% last year, and then someone decided they didn't need one of the itinerants this year. It's still up 8% over 2 years ago. So even though there's a savings in the budget, overall, it's really a blip. It could go up tomorrow when we get final services requests and someone puts one in, we could have additional itinerants. So this kind of ebbs and flows. That's as of today. It's probably outdated because someone requested something today that changes this. So this changes every day. But we try to give you some basic number of where that looks. So we're not increasing your cost necessarily 3.72%. You don't get to vote on the programs because you don't get to vote whether another school district is to select one of our services. You get to vote on the administrative budget. And we'll tell you how the program budget is also driving the administrative budget. So you can see in our programs, we have 4 of the 7 are either decreasing or they're in the 1% range. Okay? That doesn't mean we're decreasing what we're doing. We actually have more customers in all of them, except itinerants went down that little bit. The additional reason why those are low is because we've had some retirees as well. And when you have retirees and decreased retiree contribution to the state, we're able to hold those numbers down. The other areas are because of growth. We showed you before that instructional services and instructional support, people are requesting more in those areas. So that is demand driving that, and the same with exceptional education. Those additional classrooms people want drives that budget. So that ends up going up for us. So these are programs, most of this is consumer driven. People are purchasing these services. That's 90% of our budget. The problem we have in the way the state makes us allocate our budget is any person that we have that's an employee of ours that retires from any one of those programs, their entire retiree health costs goes in the administrative budget. So 90% of our employees, belong in these budgets, but 100% of their post-retirement benefits go into the administrative budget. So all the BOCES around the state are having issues with expanding administrative budgets because retiree costs all go into that same line. So you see, a few years ago, we were down below 30% of our administrative budget, which Dave will show you in a minute, was retiree health, and it's climbing every year. And we're working with the state on trying to get some different rules for how we allocate those costs. Because although the overall cost of BOCES is not going up significantly, it makes their administrative budget look like it's running out of control, and you'll see that in a minute. So you can see, you're going to get the savings on the program side, but it'll be a corresponding cost on your administrative budget side. I just want you to understand the way a BOCES budget works is much different. Yes?
Did you get money from the state in addition to the money you get from the schools, or is it just?
The only additional money we get from the state would be in grants.
Okay.
We start, and Dave will go over this in a minute, but we start at 0 and then build from there based on the requests from the districts.
So the aid that's driven actually comes back to the district, not to BOCES.
Okay.
We pay for the service, and then we get reimbursed the following year based on our aid
Right.
ratio.
Okay.
But we pay them the full piece of our share.
Okay.
And then we get our
Okay.
aid ratio
Okay.
back the following year. Amanda, have I got that right?
Yes.
The misnomer, BOCES aid doesn't come to BOCES.
Right.
Yes.
It's aid for
Okay,
buying
I got
BOCES
that.
services.
Okay.
It goes back to the school district. You purchase it, and it's not dollar for dollar. There's a ratio based on the wealth of your district.
You're 42%.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Wayne, this part is yours.
So this is a slide we do every year. It's unique to each district. So the very first one is the resident weighted average daily attendance. It's a number that the state gives us for what your average attendance is in your district. So the state gives those numbers back to us, and they're actually running about 2 years behind. So they're not a current number. But because everybody's 2 years behind, then the ratio stays accordingly. That represents about 41% of BOCES as a whole. Your aid ratio, what we were just talking about, is about 42%, so every dollar you spend on anything that's aidable. So there are some services that are not aidable. Garbage services is an example of what's not aided. It used to be, and the state said we're not going to aid that anymore. But the cost of operating that is so much less than buying it on the open market, that even without the aid, it's still cost effective. But the other things that are aidable, that's the ratio that, the aid percentage that it gets back. Currently, there's around 107 students in the CTE. We do our billing for the CTE on a 3-year rolling average, so as student populations change, we're trying to keep those as steady as possible, rather than seeing spikes from one year to the next. We've actually got those projections set and locked in as of January, so when Amanda's building a budget, she knows exactly what the CTE cost is for next year. It's set. Projected for next year is down to 95. So you'll see that'll change as years go. For our exceptional ed program, there's about 47. In the alternative program, 43 or 4. I can't even look at it.
44.
And the current contract that BOCES pays, or Ithaca pays to BOCES, is about $14.5 million. That represents about 33.6% of all of the income to BOCES. We give you those numbers so you can kind of look at the size of BOCES versus what BOCES, or what the size of Ithaca versus what Ithaca pays for. And as the district gets bigger, that's not uncommon for purchasing less than your size, because you're big enough to do it on your own. Or you need a full-time person, which can't be bought through BOCES and shared.
You're gonna hate me for saying this, but if I could wave a magic wand, it would be really cool to see what we would be spending if we were not using those 33% services.
Well, you're getting about 42% aid, so you can back into that number.
Almost double.
Yeah, it's a chunk. It's a chunk, and like Dr. Madison said, that's a perk in New York State for using those shared services. That does drive that aid back into the districts. This is the administration budget. This is the one budget that you as board members get to vote on, just like the public votes on your district budget. You guys get to vote on this budget at BOCES. So we do spend a little time with this one. If you look down through the numbers, you'll see that there aren't huge changes between the lines until you get down to line 841, the retiree health. Like Dr. Madison said, that's a huge jump. And as we have retirees go into the retirement system and take the retirement health with them, we have to budget for that. So in that number is a 7% increase in our health insurance, which our cooperative has voted on for an increase for next year, plus the retirees that I foresee going in there for next year. I don't like the 7%, none of us like it, but when we look at the national trends, we're running somewhere in the 9 to 12.
Sure.
So, it's better than if we were out on the open market. But that does drive our administrative budget crazy. About $154,000 total increase from year to year, and 151 is in that line. So we've tried to do whatever we can do to try to control what we could, but we do have to plan for those retirements as they come through. Investments and miscellaneous on the income side, I didn't see where those are going to do a whole lot of changing. So if you subtract those incomes out, we look at a 4.46 down to at the bottom for the districts. Any questions with this one? Because this is the one you guys get to vote on.
I think for some new board members, you might want to explain why you've got revenue anticipation note interest.
Okay, so we are
I
one of
understand why
probably
we-
a handful of BOCES. There's, I think, 6 of us that do it. We borrow our budget every year. And what we do is we decide how much we need in order to survive, and we actually borrow that money. The districts don't pay us every month like the other BOCES do. The other ones, the districts have to pay the BOCES every month for their services. We don't send a bill until May and June. Because we borrow the budget, we don't have to bill you folks until May and June, which allows you to take that money, invest it, or in Ithaca's case, because payments are a month later, taxes come in a month later than when we would bill for, it alleviates those cash flow issues. So that is why that's in there. Now, that looks like a big chunk, it's still aidable. So everything in this budget is still aidable at the 42%, just like the rest of the district, or the rest of the budget is. So that is one that's unique to TST, and I wanna say 5 others. So, yes,
They're
that's.
probably not opening that door to others at this point.
Yeah, actually, the state is saying no.
Yes.
The rest will not. The other ones have asked me, how do you do that, how do we get started? But it is not the first time, because the first time the districts pay it, they don't get their aid till the following year, which is the way the BOCES aid drives. So, getting that first year is a big nut to crack for districts, for BOCES to try to do that. So, we always look at the rationale, the return, and make sure that what it's costing us and what we're paying and what we're charging and what you guys are getting still comes out to be a reasonable way to do it. So we look at that every couple of years. Any other questions on that one? Because this is the budget you get to vote on.
Just wanted to make sure they knew what it was.
Absolutely,
Well,
absolutely.
we not only get to vote on, we have to vote on.
Absolutely,
Right.
absolutely.
We don't have a choice.
Jeff's gonna come back and make us vote on it.
And just as a FYI to board members, we have to vote on this on a certain day, and it can't be at a board meeting. It has to be on a date, on a Wednesday night. It's
April 20th.
Yep.
April 20th, and so we have to, it's always public knowledge, but we have to meet and vote specifically on this budget on a certain day, and basically at a certain time.
Yeah.
It's like 8 o'clock or something?
I don't know if the time is set.
Well, yeah, it's always.
I know the date is. We'll give you the time, you can do your own.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I don't know, it seemed to be always at a bit of an odd hour, but it is a meeting that we just come together to do this, but if we have other business before the board, we can take care of it, because it is a public, open meeting, just to make that clear.
Can you guys remind us one more time of your percent change in expenses, 4.36?
Yes.
How much of that is tied up in the line just above the retirement benefits?
Almost all.
Yeah, almost all. Out of the 154,000 increase, 151 is in that line alone.
Otherwise, they'd be flat.
Right.
It's a 0.01% increase without that increase.
The way it eats up, I just wanted to say it for the, I don't want to call you newbies, but just like in our budget, massive chunks are being chomped up by things we cannot control.
Yeah.
It's very easy to see because your numbers are so small. Ours, sometimes it seems like we're sitting on gold leprechaun backs. Right? Same exact thing happens up year after year.
And what we don't like about really the way that that's done is that not all of those employees work for you at BOCES. You only pay for the ones who work for you in the programs you're purchasing, but all the employees end up in that line. So, right, so this
they
might be a
become part of
program
our obligation.
Someone might retire from a program that you don't even purchase. It goes into that line, and the entire administrative budget is spread out amongst all the districts. So we're trying to work on them to pull out that line. If you want to have it all go into one space, fine, but don't charge it to the administrative budget. So, I mean, it's something that 25 years ago, when health insurance costs weren't skyrocketing, it wasn't on people's radar, and that's when the rules were made, and they now need to communicate more clearly to districts and not make you pay for other people's expenses.
Very good. Anything else?
Salary and fringe, we are in negotiations with the teachers, so that is something we always continue to work on in the negotiations, is the retiree health issue, because we know it's an ongoing issue that we have to deal with. Like I said, the 7% in the health insurance. The good news for next year, the ERS and TRS rates are going down, so all of us are seeing some reprieve when it comes to that number. That's been a 4-year struggle for all of us to try to keep up with those huge jumps in the retirement systems. Our capital budget is small. It's actually made up of two pieces. One is our EPC payment that we've got about 8.5 years left to go on, about 290-some thousand. And the rest of that actually has to be, by law, the rent that the adult ed pays for the church downtown. But then they cut us a check to reimburse us for that. So the only piece that the districts are actually paying for is the EPC. The adult ed pays the rent, but it's gotta go through this budget, so that's why that's higher than what it is. It's just, it has to be there, but there's only about 290 and change that the districts actually pay out of that. Like Dr. Madison said, our budgets, we do have to start with a zero budget every year. Anything that we don't spend, we have to send back in a refund. So every year we start with a zero budget and build from there up, what we figure it's going to cost to operate for the coming year. We have no unappropriated fund balance. It'd be nice to have that to be able to cushion things, but not so. The things that we can do in BOCES to try to cushion those are here. We are self-insured for the unemployment, so anybody that gets unemployment, the state pays them. They send us the bill, we send them a check. The insurance and the flex, those are monies that we've got set aside for the flexible spending for the dental. We're also self-funded for our dental program, so that money is set in there to pay those that we need to do. The CTE reserve is one that we've never felt that it was the right timing to start. You can fund that through depreciation of equipment that the CTE program buys. At some time we do need to do that, because once you build that and then you need to buy the next piece of equipment, that's what you use to help offset that cost and get away from those spikes. The ERS reserve is one that we were just able to start here a couple of years ago. We've got some in there for rainy day, and when ERS rates go again, which we hope they won't, but
They're likely to next year. Here, 2015
Was an awful year.
I mean, the comptroller did not hit his investment targets, so you can assume TRS and ERS are going right back up next year.
It's usually a 2-year after, the second year after is when you get the big
Yeah,
jump.
well, they're on different, the
ERS
TRS is on a
is
5-year
rolling.
rolling, and the ERS is on a 3-year.
So we're trying to put stuff in there to offset those spikes, to try to level those bills out. Our objective is to try to keep our budgets as steady as possible to get away from those big jumps, spikes, and movements.
Can I just say that probably 2 board members in the state who know what the hell you just said?
Yeah, I know. He's done his homework, it's wonderful.
You've dealt with it for a while.
I knew what he was talking about.
Yeah, I knew what he was
So
talking about.
this is that April 20th date, and also on that ballot will be, there's gonna be 4 new board members up, for districts. So just the way it is in our region, 9 school districts, 9 board members, you'll get 4 names, up or down on that as well. And that's our presentation.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, and everyone. Anything else for we appreciate your patience tonight, and we always have very interesting board meetings, so we're always glad to have you all.
You guys have been like, thanks for all you do for our board, which is zero.
Very good, thank you. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. We want to push through? Push through, push through. So go ahead and now we're just going to keep going.
If you're tired, you can go. Okay.
If there's students that want a quick signature so you can go, you can do that right now while we're, it's time for you guys to go. Any board member will sign? You want me to sign, Tucker? Brad has a really good signature. yours. Yeah, they're really. You know I couldn't just let you sit.
Oh, I was waiting for it the entire time.
And you were prepared. I like that.
Ish. Made it up on the fly.
No.
Same last name should be signed in these sheets.
Well, Tucker isn't Ainsley. That is his burden to bear.
It's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, blessing and curse. Good to see you, Tuck.
No, well, the applicant doesn't know class. Yeah, I don't actually.
Yeah, well, it's part of the requirements of the
Actually spoke fairly well.
They have to come to.
Tucker, you actually spoke.
You put them on the spot.
Yeah, they have to go to a public meeting.
It's the family tree.
You're required to go to ICSD, right? So do you have something to learn, or just go to ICSD? Oh.
Hello, I'm Lee Ginenthal. I'm a teacher on special assignment, long-time special ed teacher, since everybody's talking about their years. This is my 40th year teaching, my 30th in the district. So when I started special education, modern special ed was just beginning with the passage of Public Law 94-142. So I have that long-range vision of what this whole thing is about and our move from then to where we are now and where we need to be. To start, you've been sitting too long, you've been listening too long, and I know that the brain can take in only what the behind can endure. So what I need all of you to do now is stand up.
Come on, no problem.
Everybody. And if you notice, I give one direction at a time. You're going to turn to the person next to you, and you're going to tell them what you think inclusion is. You have 2 minutes to share your list. Let's have a seat.
Oh, I got this. Thank you, Lee, I needed that.
What I find is that once folks start talking about this, we have a hard time stopping. Because one of the things that we failed to do is have a shared vision where we actually talk to each other about what this means. And that's what the inclusion plan is about. In fact, we shouldn't even call it a plan. What we're in the process of doing is building a framework, a common understanding, a shared mindset about what this is that we're trying to do.
All right, with this slide, we are fulfilling our statutory requirements, Dr. Brown, that Love was mentioned. And I also need to state for the record, this was not the Valentine that my wife sent me. We wanted to start with this and Lee started it well with the conversation. We spent a lot of time talking and listening as we have worked on this plan with teachers, with our ESPs, with administrators, with parents, with community members. And so what we're going to share tonight will be fairly brief, and we will go in depth at later meetings, but we're going to share some of what we found in these conversations and in some of this information gathering that we have done. You heard mentioned earlier in public comment that we had a survey. The survey went out before winter break. It went out to every parent and caregiver of a child who has a 504 plan or an IEP in our district. We also put a survey out to all of our teaching staff. And that survey was completed on that end before winter break. We worked with K-12 Insight. It's a vendor that works on surveys. And when we talked to them about this, they're a company that works with districts all across the country. They said it's interesting that we're one of the first districts to actually do this. And I probably need to add that when this survey went out, I had a few different parents of children with special needs approach me. These were high school age kids. And they came to me and said, whatever comes of this survey, we just want to say thank you because we've never been asked before. So this is a first step. What we do with this, you'll see in the data, there's good things in the data to celebrate, and there's giant challenges ahead of us. And so we're going to try to lay out both of kind of what we see in terms of highlights and challenges, and both from the parent-caregiver side and the teacher side. And this is just the beginning. As a good qualitative researcher, we're doing some other things that Lee will talk about and Crystal will talk about that's trying to sort of drill down and get even further with hearing where people are and trying to work with them to move forward with this plan. So, parent survey, we had 252 responses. That is, the K-12 Insight people really don't like to do response rates, but it's like 27, 28% of those parent and caregivers that we sent to. And we're just going to share some brief highlights that are in these areas. Communication and support. An area that we did really well is the phrase, I'm able to effectively and openly communicate with my child's teacher. 86% of both special education and 504 parents agreed with that statement. Obviously, when we talk about things we're celebrating, there's 14% of people who disagree with that statement. So we want this to be 100%. But we felt that was a positive number. On the other side, in terms of communication, the statement, the district provides adequate information to parents and guardians about the special education programs and services available to their children. Only 45% of special ed and only 42% of 504 parents agreed with that statement. So we have a lot of work to go in terms of district communication and support with our parents and caregivers. The next area that we wanted to highlight was inclusion. We had a lot of different questions where we had parents reflect on the inclusive experience that their child experiences in our schools. One that I want to point out that I think is worth sharing, the statement, school staff make a genuine effort to include my student, my child, in all aspects of the school community, including extracurricular activities, performances, and other activities outside the classroom. 81% of special education parents and 90% of 504 parents agreed or strongly agreed with that statement. On the other side though, the statement, my child feels comfortable participating in extracurricular school activities or clubs, only 59% of special ed parents agreed with that statement. So we need to drill down, we need to bring more data back in a future meeting about what percentage of participation rates we actually have. I should also note 77% of 504 parents agreed with that statement. The IEP experience, there's a few statements here that we had, and these are just special education parents whose children have an IEP. But there's 3 statements that we had 90+% of our parents agreeing with or strongly agreeing with. One is, I feel like a valued member of my child's special education team. 2, when we plan and implement my child's IEP, I am a respected partner with my child's teacher and other service providers. And 3, I have had the opportunity to take part in the development of my child's IEP. We had over 90% of folks either agree or strongly agree with that. Again, we're going for 100. In terms of overall satisfaction, for parents, this overall satisfaction is a very kind of simple statement. Are you satisfied with your child's program in schools? We had the numbers are up there. So obviously we have 9% not at all satisfied for special education parents. For parents with children with 504 plans, 11% not at all satisfied. We need to drill down on that just a little bit, and these numbers are numbers that we will be working on. My child's IEP or 504 accommodations are meeting his or her educational needs. 74% of special education parents agree with that, and 65% of 504 parents agree with that. Those numbers indicate that's a large area of growth for us coming forward. The last statement I'll say in terms of this part of the survey, the modifications and accommodations written into my child's IEP or 504 plan are consistently provided. 73% of special education parents agreed or strongly agreed with that, and only 51% of 504 parents agreed with that or strongly agreed. So obviously, again, large room for improvement. We wanted to share both areas where we feel we're doing pretty well in, but also areas where there needs to be significant growth. We're not trying to hide anything with the survey. I will be, in terms of next steps with this, we like to do something, it's called triangulation of the data. Only about, I said 28% of parents or caregivers filled this out. And we received a lot of feedback that you're missing segments of our population, of our community, with a survey that was written like this. So we're going to work with some community organizations to hold parent focus groups this spring, which will be facilitated either by community folks or some of the people sitting to my right. And we're going to be going after parents who might not typically want to fill out a survey. We want to drill down and get even more of the parental experience. We have a meeting with SEPTA. We have some of the SEPTA board here tonight. And we will share the results and go deeper into the results at a meeting in March, in which we'll talk more about this survey. But obviously there's a few areas, and there'll be more that we share over time, but in terms of baseline, the district, we need to improve students accessing the opportunities of our extracurricular programs. The process of the creation and implementation of our 504 plans needs to be greatly improved in our district. And from the district perspective, and this is one I own all of it, but this is one I take very close personal responsibility for. We need to improve the district communication and education efforts around this. So some ideas get batted around when we get more into budget discussions later this spring. Some of these might come up, but one of the things we've talked about, Ruth mentioned in her public comment, that we do have a special education advisory committee. There's teachers on the committee, community members, parents, staff members. And one of the things we talked about at our last meeting was one of the ways that probably would improve some of these numbers if parents felt like they had someone to help them through the process. I don't know if it was mentioned, I missed part of the BOCES presentation, but some of our neighboring districts are starting to use a program called Family Navigator. It's something that's funded through BOCES. It's not an enormous investment, it's something we could pilot, but a Family Navigator isn't described as an advocate, but it's someone who's like a third party. They do not work for the district, but they essentially help families navigate the system and give the families someone to talk to while they're in this process. Staff survey. The staff survey, we had 228 responses, staff meaning teachers. That's close to 40% response rate. So that's actually, I need to say the folks that we work with, the professional survey people, both our parent response rate and our staff response rate, they were very, very pleased with those numbers. This was a difficult survey because we didn't want to just give like 8 questions and have it be a 2-minute thing. We wanted to drill deeper. People had to invest about 15, 20 minutes of their time to do it. So we're really pleased with the response rates on both sides. But we're doing extra things with the staff that go beyond the survey to try to capture all the voices. But in terms of some of the information that came out from the staff survey, there's a lot of sort of growth areas that we have for the district in regards to our data from this. One is there was a statement, district leadership provides support for inclusion. In this survey, the only thing that, despite what we heard in public comment, the only way the survey folks drilled the data down was they separated general education teachers and special education teachers in terms of looking at the data. We agreed that we thought that would be an interesting thing to see. So that statement, district leadership provides support for inclusion, that's me. 61% of special education teachers and 45% of general education teachers agree with that statement. So there's a huge growth area for us right there. Here's one that talks about teachers working together. General education and special education staff members consistently and successfully collaborate. 52% of special education teachers and 58% of general ed teachers agreed with that statement. So that's something obviously we all can work on. That's something that administration can support, and we'll talk about that in a second, but that's something that we thought was worth sharing. Some areas where there's a little bit of disconnect, but if you think about human nature, it kind of makes sense. The staff survey asked some really specific questions about people's strengths in terms of like where to help us plan for professional development and to help us plan the support of co-teaching. One statement, general education teachers have the necessary expertise in inclusionary practices to educate students with disabilities in the general education environment. So that statement is a global statement. They're asking each individual person filling out the survey, think globally about the teachers you work with. Do you agree with that statement or disagree? Only 1/3 of our teachers agreed with that statement. So 1/3 of our teachers disagree that we have the necessary expertise to implement inclusion. So that's a huge growth challenge for us in terms of professional development and support. However, when teachers were asked about their own specific abilities, one was, I am confident in my ability to provide the accommodations for students with disabilities. 88% of special ed teachers and 86% of general ed teachers agreed with that statement. When teachers were presented with the statement, I am confident in my ability to differentiate instruction for varying student abilities, 84% of special ed teachers and 80% of gen ed teachers agreed with that statement. So obviously some growth areas there, and then the last area is co-teaching that we want to talk about, and this is a huge part of inclusion. It's a huge part of what these two people sitting next to me do every day, both from a support perspective and actually working side by side with folks implementing IEPs and trying to meet the needs of all students. Again, back to district leadership. The statement, district leadership provides adequate support for co-teaching. Only 35% of special education teachers and 28% of gen ed teachers agree with that statement. One more, co-teaching teams have access to mutual planning time for their co-taught classes. Only 24% of special education staff and 25% of general education teachers agree with that statement. So that's a huge one for us all to work on. But that's something that we have started to have. We've been having conversations with that ever since we started co-teaching. But we're going to be developing some plans to really make inroads on those numbers because 25% is obviously not acceptable. So next steps for the staff survey. I just talked about co-teaching. We need to find some really systematic ways to find ways for folks who are co-teaching to have time to plan together. And we need to find ways for administration to support that. We need to strengthen our professional development, which is already has a lot of strengths, but we need to further strengthen to build teacher efficacy on teaching diverse classrooms. And this one's on, all of it's on me, but this one is specifically on me. We need to increase the way we communicate, or improve the way we communicate and support from the district administration on the inclusion plan. So we don't want to just rely on a survey. We, kind of taking what some of the folks in public comment to heart, we have made a very purposeful attempt at getting out to each building. This has been one of Lee's tasks as a teacher on special assignment, and I should introduce Bristol Sessoms to his right, who is a special education teacher at DeWitt. My apologies for not doing that earlier. Lee has been going to each building. We've asked for a focus group of teachers and ESPs at each building, and we have gotten 11 of our 12 staffs completed. And Lee is going to talk about how that process has gone.
Okay, so what we needed to do was, if you notice, cute picture, building reflection, got the idea? So instead of this online survey, for which there was a lot of concern about confidentiality and how specific the questions were, I wanted face-to-face time. Relationship is how you make things happen. So I sat down with a group of 11 folks at 11 buildings so far at each building. That was a principal, teachers, and ESP staff who volunteered. They were paid. It was outside of the school day, so this wasn't an added duty that we were just expecting of them. The questions they were asked were in a host of topics. These were the things that we realized are the major levers to move inclusion forward. We had opportunity to talk about whether these practices were sustained, whether they were developing, whether they were just initiating, whether they were absent, whether we don't even know where we're at on this stuff, and hear multiple voices. As for inclusion, that shared vision or definition, did anybody in here come up with the same definition when you spoke to each other? I don't think so. We don't have that anywhere in the district. And buildings haven't had the conversation about what inclusion was. As I went from building to building, they said, thank you, this is the first time we have actually talked about what inclusion is. And we're far from that shared vision, but that's what we have to build, and it only happens through the conversation. Administrative support. Administrative support is pretty solid in this district for these things. We were told, research told us that if you've got a true believer as a principal, you're going to be able to move inclusion forward. Interesting. Research and reality don't always line up. In the buildings where we've got the true believers as the principal, and then the buildings where we might have somebody who's skeptical but is still moving the work forward, when I look at what's happening in the classrooms, the practices are exactly the same. The challenges are exactly the same. But in the buildings that are led by the true believer, the perception of the staff, when we talk about whether it's sustaining, developing, or initiating, are that they're farther along. And in the buildings where there's some skepticism, they see themselves as not as far along. But we could make a movie on inclusion, going from one building to another and see outstanding examples of what's happening. The problem is, it's happening on the backs of individuals, because it's only successful based on the personality of who's put together. It's not that we have any systemic support to encourage these practices, and folks are getting burnt out doing it. Instructional practice. You saw the discrepancy between when we spoke about ourselves and what we thought everyone else was doing. We've got a long way to go on instructional practice. It's still unclear among a lot of folks in terms of, is it the job of the gen ed teacher to teach everybody? Is it the job of the special ed teacher to be an equal partner in that classroom to make that happen? Those things aren't clear in terms of roles and responsibilities. Collaboration and co-teaching. We don't have the time in the day. we end up with things that I refer to as speed dating or serial monogamy. So there are buildings where we've got a special ed teacher assigned to co-teaching with 7 other gen ed teachers in one day. You're not going to be part of a classroom. We have ESP staff and special ed staff or reading teachers spending 20 minutes at a time in a classroom as they rotate. That's how we're pushing in. We're providing the services in there. But how disjointed is that? We've got a long way to go on that. ESP staff. We've started training ESP staff. Some of the buildings where the principals have bought in, we've been doing monthly trainings with all ESP staff, going into the 3rd year now. There are some buildings that hasn't happened yet. We're offering trainings on parent-teacher conference days for elementary ESP staff. All that stuff is great. Question?
Yes, I'm only stopping you because you continue to say it, and I don't think I have a context or baseline for what you mean. When you say bought in, staff of the building, principals, building leaders, I don't know what that means. What are the other, what's the option, right? Not just we've decided to go this way, this is what the current momentum of the entire profession is saying kids need.
That's a fantastic question, and let me explain it from the historic perspective. When I went to school, and when most of my colleagues went to school and we were trained as special ed teachers or gen ed teachers, we were taught that this is what our job involves. And many of us went into the profession because we had a clear vision of what we thought that job entailed. That changed at a certain point in history. And we have changed in our understanding of what it means to be included. Initially it was deinstitutionalizing, then it was mainstreaming, then it was inclusion. But all along the way, when this magic wand came by and said, this is what it is now, there wasn't the on-the-ground coaching and support and the building of a new mindset. So we have folks that are mourning the loss of a profession that they once had that they no longer have. And we didn't have the structures in place to welcome them in partnerships to build this new idea.
And inclusion is the new idea.
So just to simplify your answer, we're dealing with people not being able to transition with the concept of inclusion.
Some folks are still struggling with it, and it's even harder when we don't have the supports in place to make it work. So if I'm assigned to co-teach with 7 people and I have no planning time during the day, we don't have an agreed upon scope and sequence of skills that I could even refer to, we have no new teacher training to get somebody up to speed, and we place somebody in that situation and say co-teach, and we haven't clearly defined the roles and responsibilities for gen ed and special ed. We haven't trained folks on how do you effectively sit down and collaborate in a minimum amount of time, let alone on the fly. And then we blame folks for not getting on with the times and switching mindset.
You told us what was the mindset of the education 35 years ago. What about the ones coming out today? What are they expecting?
It's different.
But what are they expecting? What are they? Are we doing anything near what they are expecting?
Crystal, you're newer on the scene.
So I think that Eldred, your question kind of, so first of all, let me say, Crystal Sessom, special education teacher, DeWitt Middle School. This year, administrative intern, so I've been working a little bit more closely with Lee. But when Eldred, you asked your question and it kind of aligns to yours, it made me think of what Lee asked in the beginning, which, what does inclusion mean to you? Or how can you define inclusion? To me, I say it's common sense, right? It's what we all should be doing. So when Eldred, you struggle with what haven't they bought into, I struggle with that too. So on the flip side, it's hard for me to explain to you what else is there if it's not inclusion. I do know, I think that it's more so not the difficulty in understanding what inclusion is, more so how it looks. How can this look in my classroom if I don't have planning time? Or how can this look in my classroom if I don't really understand the role and responsibility that I am responsible for and for my co-teacher, or if he or she, differs in their understanding of the role.
And if I could speak
I
to
just
that.
want to throw out Lee and I debate a lot, and so I won't, get totally into it here, but I don't always use the phrase buy-in or bought in. One of the things I've experienced as a leader over the years is sometimes people need to, and this is a different way to maybe define buy-in, maybe I'll say it that way. One of the ways people change is they have success doing something different. And so, and it gets even better if they have repeated success of doing something different. So one of the things that we're seeing is there's some areas where it's really successful. And then there's some areas, Lee describing the teacher who's co-teaching with 7 different people, that is geared to not be successful. I'm not saying it's not, it is or it isn't, but it probably isn't. And so if we start really looking at intentionality and trying to find ways for people to be more successful teaching in an inclusive classroom, the survey numbers, the student success, like all of the indicators that we should be looking for in this will start to improve. I firmly believe that. So, I sometimes feel like you can't really wait for someone to buy into something. You have to provide them with the support to have that positive experience. I mean, we always kind of say the same thing, we just say it maybe sometimes a little differently. I just want to say that. Ann.
It seems to me that one of the issues is a matter of there's not enough support. So is it that there's not enough personnel, or is it the way it's structured, or what kind of other resources are required to make this work?
I think PD, professional development, is essential.
Okay.
And we have dropped the ball on that and new teacher training for a long time now. And folks have gotten out of the professional development habit. The demands on classroom teachers have increased, so that by the end of the day, there's no inches left on the tape measure when you go to poll. And when it's time to sit down and talk and do staff training, folks are tired. We have to find ways to get the training into the school day during staff meetings. We have to find ways to get the training to happen during team meetings and grade level meetings. We have to get the coaching back in place so that as you learn a new skill, you've got somebody working with you. We need to reinstitute things like peer observation that we had years ago with Tessa, which was part of our induction training for new teachers, something we dropped about 5 or 6 years ago. It was the longest continuous staff development program we had in the district. It started in 1985. There's things we can put in place.
So somebody mentioned after public comment to have negotiations be public. And whatever happens with that, I probably won't be the one who decides, but I will say that one of the things that was discussed in negotiations was trying to have something contractually based about planning time to support the co-teaching model. It is an incredibly complex thing to try to put into a contract, and we would have needed a lot more time just to figure out that issue to get in the contract. But I will say both sides were really interested in trying to find ways to make that work, and so it is an tentative agreement, but moving forward we are looking for ways to try to really support this idea of really finding ways to have teachers be able to plan together that they're not finding right now. That's essential.
Another way to provide support that we've been working on is increasing the knowledge of administrators on what the heck co-teaching is. We had folks observing co-teaching, writing evaluations, and they had no idea what co-teaching was. So we scheduled this session, and we worked with all the administrators. Crystal and I and Jen Gondek from BOCES, who has been invaluable in the work that we've been doing, did a training session on what are the 6 models of co-teaching. instructional practice based on kid need. Our next session, we're going to talk about how as an administrator do you support co-teaching and inclusive practices in your building, nuts and bolts stuff. That's how you provide support for teachers. You have to also provide it for administrators and ESP staff and the bus drivers and the custodians.
Are
the
all
cafeteria
the
lady.
administrators going? Are they required to go?
We do these trainings at meetings that they're required to go
Okay.
to. I'll also add in terms of administrative support this past summer. We really wanted to emphasize tonight, and that's where Krista will jump in, is that we're not just listening to people this year. Like, there's a lot of action steps that are happening. We're not, waiting for the survey data to tell us what we need to do, although it was very informative. We had a group of administrators attend the Syracuse Institute of Inclusive Leadership this summer with a group of teachers. We have found that those principals who went to that training or that conference this summer just started jumping in and doing some really good activities with their staff regarding like tracking a third grader with an IEP and how many different adults does this third grader interact with and how many times are they out of the classroom and how many times are they, and so that came from that conference. We are going to send another group to that this summer of both teachers and admin because we found that to be really valuable.
This seems to be exactly what the young lady was sitting where at the end stood up and said, Michaela? Mahal? If you've been doing this long enough, you see the connections, right? This is exactly what she said. We're up against it. We're losing the capacity to do what you're asking us to do, which is reach those kids because of these issues you're talking about. So I don't want this to just to be another session where people are sitting at the table educating us. This is seeping into the very thing that the teachers are talking about, right? Something's going to give. Either the recession has to go away, right? People have more time to spend with their kids. Kids have to be stopped being born with these autism spectrum problems or whatever. We have to stop doing IEPs, or we have to help them do their job in a way that there is an inch at the end of the day, even if we want them to go to training.
Speaking of that, another budget initiative for this year that we'll be talking about, whether we continue on for next year, is we have a teacher on special assignment, a consultant teacher, Rachel Panosian, who specializes in children with autism, and she's been supporting teachers and ESPs across the district with both individual children, but also providing professional development for groups of teachers and ESPs as well. It's all about building capacity. I think we're just kind of starting to scratch the surface. We wanted Crystal here to talk about some individual efforts at one of our individual schools, DeWitt Middle School, that she's been helping to facilitate. And then we'll go into further question and discussion as long as it allows.
So Lee kind of spoke to this earlier when he mentioned just that, we've had to find creative ways to allow for teachers to plan, allow for teachers to have professional development, and it happens sometimes after school. So at DeWitt specifically, we have been creative and purposeful with the use of the Wednesday after school PLC time. We have in-house professional development that's offered. Teachers can offer professional development on a series of different things, or if it's something that you offer and you put this forward at the beginning of the school year, you can do so in a way that teachers know this is something that's going to be ongoing. My focus this year has been on collaborative inclusive practice and co-teaching. I have worked with staff at DeWitt, both co-teaching pairs, teachers who do not necessarily co-teach with someone. Also, there have been sessions where ESP staff have also attended. And I think it's important that, to make note of the fact that it's not just special ed teachers and gen ed teachers attending it. It's not just teachers who have a co-teacher, because it's not about co-teaching only. It's about, inclusion, it's about best practice, and it's about making growth and changes in our mindset around this idea of inclusion. So the Wednesday afternoon, some of the topics we've been focusing on, defining roles and responsibilities. That's been a big one because there's clearly a lack of alignment and shared understanding around that. Understanding the 6 instructional models, understanding culturally responsive practice, discussing student experience in regard to equity, access, classroom culture, and climate, parent experience in regard to equity access, CSC experience, and communication. Sharing effective classroom strategies that create and support teacher collaboration, and allowing time for teachers to actually collaborate and plan after school during this in-house PD time. We also mentioned in our work together leading the admin training, and one thing that we found interesting is beforehand we send out a Google form to serve as like an entrance ticket for admin to create, so we can have an idea of what do they know, what's happening at the different buildings, what's needed. And some of the things that came up was the need for more PD, and how, and Lee and I now, some of our next steps is to look at this information, what do administrators need, and how can we work with the building principals to inform next steps in supporting co-teachers and the inclusion framework.
Just
So, it's small steps, but we're heading in the right direction. And learning, teaching and learning is a recursive process. Just because I went into a building once doesn't mean I'm done. So I'm continuing to come back and come back and come back, and Crystal's joining me in different buildings. And we're working with principals and groups of teachers where they say, from this menu of things, what is it we need to do to move our practice forward? And we're providing the supports. And it's a long road, and what we think is inclusion right now, we're gonna find out 20 years from now, we were very short-sighted, and there's a whole other level.
Sure.
When we're talking about inclusion, I wanna be clear that it's not just students with disabilities we're talking about including. I spoke to Louvel and Matt earlier this year about our mission, that engage, educate, empower, and I said we needed to add a fourth E. Fourth E is everyone. We thought it was understood, we need to say it. And when we say everyone,
Sure.
we mean all the kids and all the adults. So that when we include folks, we have to think about all the staff. When we were giving out devices at the beginning of this year, ESP staff weren't getting a device. Lo and behold, we realized that, we put it in place, they now have devices. Access to school tools. So an ESP staff member could read an IEP. They don't have that access. We're working on getting that access. It's when we start thinking about everyone is part of the plan, and we do a systems-wide thinking, we can fill in the gaps and make this work. There are things that are gonna cost more money, yes, but there are things that we can do smarter. We're working too damn hard without getting enough bang for our buck.
So some next steps with the board, we want to come back in regards to the plan in a month or two to talk about some other metrics that we're looking at. Today we really wanted to just focus on survey data and these sort of reflective conversation groups that we've had at all our buildings. And so when we come back, we want to report on other metrics we're looking at and report on the parent focus groups that we'll have this spring out in the community. So this is something that just, I'm sort of looping back to the public comment at the beginning. We have not avoided hard conversations with parents. We have not avoided hard conversations or hard listening opportunities with staff. We've intentionally sought it out. But we've also, people who seek us out, there's teachers who come straight to me and say, come to our building to talk to a small group about this because we have concerns, or we see where it's not working. We've never shied away from that. So we will continue to do that as long as this plan exists. So like Lee said, it's a lot of small steps, but we are, as you can see from some of the survey data, we have a large area of growth ahead of us, but we have some areas to feel good about too. So thanks for your time tonight. I know it's late.
We'll just spend a few more minutes. Sheila, did you wanted to weigh in earlier?
Brad was making, I think you were making a comment about, what people know. I find, I interview a lot of teachers and related service providers, many of them new graduates. They're much more knowledgeable of RTI, response to intervention. They're, if not experienced, are certainly more aware of co-teaching, collaboration. So I see that shift. So something must be happening at the, in terms of their own, education. I see resumes of teachers, younger, more than a lot of the new they've had some experience with co-teaching, maybe in their practicums and so forth. So I didn't see that, I didn't see that, let's say, 10 years ago. So I can see that shift occurring because that's what many districts are doing now. So that's, they still need to grow and develop and so forth, but at least many are familiar with the terminology.
Thanks, or just maybe another comment, or I think there's, go ahead.
I work with a lot of student teachers, and I've supervised student teachers in general ed, student teachers from SUNY Cortland, Wells College, and Ithaca College, so I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of what our general education teachers are coming in with. And while I do agree with Sheila that there is more awareness of different teaching models, a general education certified teacher coming straight out of the university will have one or possibly two survey courses in working with students with disabilities. They will not have expertise in any particular area of disability or particularly like how to manage and best reach students with a myriad level of disabilities in their classrooms. So while there is more awareness, there's not more practical knowledge, and especially on the general education side, our teachers are not prepared without additional supports on our part to really handle what we're throwing on their plates.
And the board certainly, we expect everyone, and we're an everyone board, and that's goes to our graduation level, 100%. Our whatever we need to do to provide supports. Crystal, Lee, Matt, great work. There's much to do. We're certainly a part of that process, and we look forward to reaching everyone. And Elder, do you have one last?
I actually have a question. This is very rare because we have some folks here who sat here all night, clearly working hard on this and our children. In this circumstance, so if you guys have anything you'd like to add to enlighten us about the experiences that you've gone through, and I know you've been doing this a while, do you see an improvement in communication? What are your hopes for where we will go?
Well, I'll try to be brief here. For 14 years, I had a child in this district with special needs. Nobody ever sent me a survey. I think it's a wonderful thing. I mean, I think the information that we're getting from this is clearly useful. I think it's, I think that Matt and Lee have done a great job in identifying if this was a need that we need to do. It's one piece of a long conversation that we need to have, and I'm very grateful that it's occurring. And so I want to commend them for their efforts and what they've been doing here.
Excellent. Are we good?
I just want to say that
Go ahead.
I'm really very grateful for your frankness and the way in which you identified very clearly a lot of the challenges, and somehow the way you did that made me feel very energized about addressing those challenges. So I really appreciate that.
We can make it better, and we are. Thank you.
That is an excellent place to stop, but we're not going to stop because Chris is going to talk. As he did earlier, Chris is going to finish up for us.
Well, this is a behemoth, and I do believe in the law of diminishing returns. So we try to conquer too many things, you don't get the results you want. Two things that we can start doing to deep root progress. What are the two things we can start doing?
I'll say one for me is I think that the survey data really supporting co-teaching in a really systemic sort of way. It's hard. It's a behemoth itself. Just finding that planning time and then the training to help people do it well. That for me, that was probably my biggest aha coming from the survey. We sort of knew it, but then seeing the numbers say it that clearly for me.
I think mindset work. We can train folks in all kinds of instructional practice, but what I've seen through all the years is you could have all the tools in your kit, but you use them differentially based on whether you look at a student as a perceived low achiever or a perceived high achiever. So what we have to do is we have to build a shared mental model that is based on growth and potential. And that's the biggest piece.
And those would be my two. Mindset shift, for sure, and definitely co-teaching and supporting co-teaching, especially around planning. And I say that because of my experience as a special education teacher, and I co-taught in many subject areas, English, math, social studies, reading. And now, in this experience, in my experience as a special ed teacher, I felt like maybe it was only me who felt that way, but in this experience of being able to go around to different buildings and hear that this is a systemic thing, this is a district-wide thing, that we need to better support co-teachers in a way that they can really co-teach.
One last thing, as overwhelming as this seems, we are so much farther ahead than other districts.
Absolutely.
Matt and I have been in contact with George Theo Harris from the Inclusion Institute in Syracuse, and we told them what we were doing, and they were blown away because other districts contract with them to come in and tell them what's wrong and do some training to move it. And what we're working on is building a shared mindset. We're gathering multiple perspectives, and we're looking at this as a systems approach, and they thought it was so exciting they hadn't seen this anywhere happening.
That does not surprise me. The collaboration between Crystal and Lee makes me optimistic. Multi-generational thing there, Lee.
Man, woman, black, white.
Makes me want to cry.
But I'll go more toward our newer teachers coming through with a new look, new assumption that all children can succeed. And how are we going to make that happen? And certainly appreciate Crystal doing an administrative internship and willing to take leadership roles, making the difference in a classroom. Lee, you've been doing that for a long time. I appreciate your work. Matt does a great job. Frankly, we're lucky to have Matt here and as part of our administrative team, really trying to push this work forward. And so I'm going to appreciate everybody. I'm going to appreciate everyone's time tonight. And without objection, Matt, nothing else from anyone?
One sentence.
Eldred, you're going to talk. And then
One sentence.
All right, Eldred.
Budget implications, right? What you're saying to me is we're going to have conversations going forward before we vote on this budget about what this means, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that it, Eldred? All right.
Not right now.
Without objection, we appreciate everyone's time tonight. It's been we've started many hours ago at 5:30, and so I think everyone should go home.
4:30.
4:45.
Yeah.
I didn't realize there were many meetings.